computer network, like I mean the fundamentals of computer networking, right? So before we now move on to right, so good evening everyone. I think it was just Mr. Gringa and I that were here earlier on. So for those that are just joining, good evening. So others will be joining us soon. So but we have to um what I would do is a quick recap on what we did yesterday, right? So then move on to um uh, more configuration on our network, right? So we're setting up additional networks, right, today, right? So I'll be, although for the people that are here, I think they were here, they were people that are on this call currently now, right? So we're all present yesterday, right? So for those that will be joining much later, maybe the two persons that were not with us yesterday, right? So I hope they were able to um catch up. So actually the review would be um more for them. Right, so this is what we'll be setting up, right? So I'm gonna call up three switches. I've called up three routers, and now we're adding setting up five computers. So we are adding two more computers, right, to the network. So if at any point, right, you're not hearing me, well, you let me know. So I'll just switch to another network. Right, so if you're not hearing me, you let me know. And so I can switch to another network. I cannot hear me very well. My what I'm demonstrating is it's not synchronizing with what I'm saying. Right, so you let me know, please. All right, so Mr. Desmond, Mr. Makari, you are welcome. Right, so we are adding. Let's make this five computers, but let's just leave it with let's just do with four, right? So in each net, so there will not be. And some people arrange it. It will be to look somehow, right? So the same way we set up the um those other networks, right? The first network that we set up the same way, right? So the only thing is that we are adding just one computers, right? So and so the first network we're adding um one computers, one computer here. You set up the same thing here, right? So just let the local area network would have five um networks, four computers, and the entire network will be having three routers. Right. So today I'm going to explain um the switches and routers and hubs and repeaters. Right. So while I do these demonstrations, right. So it's necessary we understand their differences. Right. So though I've made mention of a few of them. Right. So the bigger device you saw or we connected to, and the other one, the smaller one, they are all the both of them are switches. Right. So the other ones are routers. Right. So I'm gonna explain the three of them. So I'm using a straight through cable. So we don't have to do this with me yet. Right. So I'm not even configuring, I'm just setting it up. So those that will be joining, when you see these three networks, they will know that yes, they have a feel of what to expect. Right. So this connects to this one,
Hello, sir. Please, I'm
connects
not
to
seeing
this
anything.
one.
Oh. Hello,
You're
sir.
not seeing my
I'm
screen.
just, I'm seeing your screen, but it's just the switches I'm seeing. I'm not seeing the connection at all. I don't know.
What are you seeing?
I'm seeing the two switches, but maybe that thing is not showing. I don't know.
This is just your others. Mr. Desmond, can you see all the networks I've set up?
Hello, good
I'm
evening. I
seeing two
can
So
switches.
see just two routers. I can see nothing more.
three.
The
Wow.
two routers,
Okay, let me
yes.
stop sharing. Yeah, so I'm sharing again. Thank you. That's why I said I want us to just take notes. So how about now?
I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything yet.
Yeah, I'm sharing now.
Yeah, I think it's fine now.
It's fine, right?
Yes.
All right. Okay, thank you. So, right. So now we'll be connecting these three computers together. All right. So connect these three computers. So this is what we'll do. Let's take note of this. All right. So because I'm going to screenshot this and share to the group. Right. You can see the computers are still showing red. Right. The three computers are still showing red. Right. Because apart from we've not configured IP addresses on the router, their router ports are shut down by default, right? So most routers, right? So especially the modular routers, right? So they are not active, they are not enabled. That's why when we are in the interface mode, we always do no shutdown. We always do no shutdown to make that port to call back that port up to make it alive, right? So we have All right, so now for the first router, right? So this first router will be connected to this. So we are using GT Bank, right? So let me label this one now. So like I said, we are expanding this network. So this is GT Bank. Please mute your mic. GT Bank, Lagos. Let me see. Mute your mic. Thank you. So GT Bank, Lagos. GT Bank, Abuja. So GT Bank, Abuja. Right. So we have let's say GT Bank. um let's say Kaduna. Okay, let's use Delta. So let's use this. So we have GT Bank, Delta. So you can give yours. So I'll be making reference to the networks based on the name now, right? So if you want, if I tell you, okay, the Lagos router or the Delta router or the Abuja router, so you know what I'm um referring. You know the network I'm referring to, or the Lagos LAN, or the Abuja LAN, or the Delta LAN. You know what I'm referring to, right? So here we have three routers, right? So like I said, I'm going to be explaining. Though we've gotten to understand just little, not much about what the router or the switch, their differences. So because now we are expanding this network, so this is a wide area network, right? So that's why I need to explain. So now I want to connect these three routers together. We can't use a straight through cable, right? That we always use, right? So make use of, we can't use a crossover cable, right? Remember I said that crossover cables, you can use if you want to connect, we have similar devices like switch to switch. On this packet tracer, we can use crossover cable, right? So if we have two computers that will need to talk to each other, need to communicate to each other, we can use a crossover cable on this simulation, right? So, but even though these two are the same devices and needs to be connected together, we can't use a crossover cable, right? So they are not in the same location, right? So I think something escaped my mind on yesterday, right? But I think that first day I showed you that's radio. There's this ubiquity radio. There are two of them, right? So and I'm going to explain this here, right? So this is Lagos router, Lagos network, local area network. This is Abuja, this is Delta. So even though I'm using a cable, right? So this is a cable. I will be using a serial DTE cable. Either this is serial data communication equipment or serial data termination equipment. So any of these two, but I'll prefer to use the DTE, which is serial DTE, right? So I'll use this. So this one, most of the times, when the ISP is setting up the network, they will prefer to use this and set up a clock speed at their own end, right? So I'm going to take you to maybe I'll show you an image here so you get to understand this better. So this computer, I mean this router, right? So if I click here now, I want to connect this router to this one. So I remember I said we'll be using this because it's a wide area. It's for it's not for local area connection, it's for wide area connection. So I've clicked on this DT cable, right? So this serial DT. If I click here, there's no actual ports that this cable would connect to. If I try to click fast Ethernet, see the cable cannot be connected to this port, right? So if I click here, the cable cannot be connected to that port, right? So that means we need to add a port, right? So we need to add a port that would that um that is suitable for that cable. We'll also make a provision for serial ports. That's the word, right? So if you look very well now, you see that this router, right, is a modular router. It has 3 ports here, another 3 ports here, right? So and another 3 ports here. All these are different ports. If you look down here, right, you see different ports, different ports, right? So different ports. So what we want to do, the port that needs to be installed, right? So that's the actual ports that will be well, the ports needed for this are what we are simulating here. That's the actual port to be installing here. So what we are looking at for here is week 1 2, week 1C. I mean, right? So you can see here is a serial connection. So remote site, remote. Whenever I hear the word remote, it is not within, it is outside, right? So we are going to click on this, right? So the week 1C, you can drag here and drop, or let me take this here. So this is the slots, right? So this is the slot, right? So this is the slot. So this is the ports. This is the slots that these ports can be connected to. Mr. Gbenga, can you be admitting? Mr. Gbenga, I don't know if you have the permission to admit, right? So
No, that's
in
the
case you
permission,
hear,
sir. You're not even see what you're
The leadership of the party
you're not even see
has
what you're
put
doing,
the
sir.
car
okay.
before the horse. But let me
You
bring
cannot see
you
my
to
screen.
this matter. You know.
Yes, you can see your screen, but we can't find your mouse. Your mouse is not moving. You can't see what you're moving. I mean, your mouse is not moving at all. You can just see your screen, but your mouse, you can't find your mouse.
Yeah, is it just Mr. Gbenga? Let's confirm. Can can anyone see my mouse?
It's same
Pointer.
here. You can't see your mouse. It's not moving.
Okay. All right. Just a moment, please. All right. So I'll switch to a different network. So let's see. Yeah, can you see my mouse now?
You can't even see your screen. You can't even see your screen,
No,
sir.
it's coming up.
See,
It's coming
okay.
up. I just shared it now. Can you see my mouse now? I'm dragging this thing. Can you see?
I can't see your mouse, so I can't see for other people here.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen, yes, but it's doing slow motion.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yeah, I'm moving a window. Like, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it, but it's taking time for it to move. Okay, I can
It's
see
slow.
it. It's moving.
And
It's slow.
it's slow. It's very slow.
All right. So, Mr. Desmond, are you in this call? Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So, I want you to. Okay. Okay. No problem. So, I wanted to give you access. Right. I wanted to give you access to do a control on my screen. So let me see. Oh, no problem. So, Mr. Gbenga, can you hear me?
I'm with you. I can hear you. Yes,
All
loud and
right.
clear.
So I'm closing the window now. All right. So I've closed the window that was there's a mini window that was on this. I've closed it. How is it?
Yes. Yeah,
Can be
I can
closed,
see it.
right?
Yes. Yes.
That's
Yes.
closed,
It's
right?
closed already.
So
Yes.
So I've called back up the same window that I closed. Can you see it?
Please, can you just go back to that cable thing you talked about? I don't really get the cable thing you just talked about.
All right, but the window that I just called up now, can you see it?
Yes, I can see it. Yes, it's moving. You're dragging
All right.
the switch there.
All right,
The
all right,
router.
thank you. So this is the cable here. This is the ports here, the serial DT. Right, so we'll be using the serial DT, which is serial data termination equipment. Then this one is serial communication equipment. This one is DCE. Right, so but we'll be using DTE. Right. So and I was saying here that the ports is not it's not available. So all of these ports, all right, so we can't use any of these ports. Right? So we need to add those ports. We need to add the ports that the cable would be connected to. Right? So if you click now to add that port, first of all, click on the router here. Right? So then look at all the different ports. These are all the ports that can be installed. Right? So if you look here, you see this is an open slot, right? So this one slot, this is another open slot, and this is another open slot, right? So and then when we're connecting, I'm using 2621 XM Cisco router. If you see here, you see that one of those ports you were connecting to from this switch, you do see F0/0 and F0/1. So one is F0/0 and one is F0/1. And this is the console port that we normally use that console cable to connect to, right? So now, but the port that this serial cable, because we need to connect these three routers together, the port is not here. So I came here. This is week 1C. So if you click on all of these ports here, you will see all their various ports. Like all of these are the labels. You see all the ports here. So I already know that it is week 1C, right? So when you click on week 1C, you can drag and drop. But the router is not powered. I mean, the router is powered. If we try to drag from here to tell us that cannot add the module when the power is on. So we need to turn off the router. You can as well drag from here too. It's the same thing. But you get the same error message. Cannot add the module when the power is on. Right. So I have to turn off the router first. Right. Take note, it is week 1C. Right. So I'll drag and drop. Right. So you can put it either here. You can install the ports here or here. Any of these two. They are the same ports, the same slots. Right. So but we are using a serial cable, so that's why we are selecting this port. So once you install, take note, once you drag the port and install on the actual slot, right? So then you can now power the router, right? So you cannot power the router. So it's similar to our real life environment whereby you cannot add a um like you cannot, right? So if your laptop is on, right, and then you want to install it's not advisable. You have to turn off the laptop, even disconnect the battery, then before you start either installing RAM or touching the maybe the board or any of the components on board, right? So it's important, right? So that's best practice, right? So the router is on. Most times, most people will turn it off and add the port. They'll forget to turn on the router, and you'll be trying to access the router. It should not be accessible. If you notice, I only added one port here, right? So I only added one port here, right? So but this one I will add two because one will connect to this one, while one of the ports will connect to this. So now, if I come back here, I just want to show you something. You'll see the ports I added, serial 0/0, right? So you'll see the ports here. Now, if I click on the serial, that's where the cable will be connected to. Here, this one doesn't have serial. So that means I will have to add another serial port here. You understand? I'll have to add another serial port here. Right, so the same thing I did here, right? So just say week 1C, right? So let me zoom in so that you see it better, right? So I'm going to add two ports. Okay, you can see it's because it's on, right? So I need to shut it down first, right? So drag here and then drag here. So power on now, right? So then close it, right? So why I added two ports here is because one will take care of this one, while another one will take care of this connection here, right? So right, so Mr. Ahmed, if you get a pop-up that someone is on the lobby in the lobby to be admitted, please kindly approve the connection. All right, so on this third one here, right? So we are adding just one, right? So now let me show you something here. So this one, see, we are S0/0. If you check here now, we'll see two, right? So S0/1 and S0/0, right? So there are two different labels, right? So if I connect to S0/0, take note. This is S0/0. That's GT Bank Lagos S0/0, GT Bank Abuja S0/0 connected. Right. So we have one left. You can see S0/1. Right. So S0/1. Right. So this one will be connected to the port is not here. Right. The port is not here. So the same thing we need to do. Right. So it's the same thing we need to do. Right. So I'll turn off the um router, right? So drag this port and install here, then turn it on back, right? So then I'll connect this one, right? So it's so now the S0/1. So when you are connecting um as it is now, you've connected all the I've connected the three routers. So you can hover your mouse here to know the actual label. If you can see my pointer here where the Abuja router is S0/1, right? So that's what's showing me here. This one here is S0/0. Right? If you just place your pointer, just like we normally do on this F0/0. So because when you are configuring IP addresses, right? So you are going to be configuring you are going to be indicating the actual ports, the actual label of ports that you'll be configuring this IP, right? So take note of that, right? So we have you can see all these phones, they are all shut down, right? Like I said, the ports are shut down by default, right? So now um so first thing, okay, now let me just call up back that sorry, the same thing. I'm only going to configure this one, right? This first one, right? So from the S232 ports, the same thing we did yesterday. So to the console port of the router, right? So I'm only going to configure this, right? So we are all going to configure this, and this, right? Um, please mute your mic, Mr. Ahmed. Thank you. So okay, let me show you something here, right? So this is how it is. Then the video I showed we saw yesterday, Ubiquiti radio, or you've all seen this radio on the mast, right? So Ubiquiti radio, it might be Cambium. So there are different brands. Right? You see this radio here, right? So the one this is the one I have. Okay, this one is a bit bigger. So there's one that I was given by Elite. So I think yes, this one Nano Beam. Okay, this is Power Beam, right? So this radio here, I know if you most back see, I don't think you've come across or you've seen a bank premises without maybe a mast or an antenna. It might be a scaffold where water tank is. Then they will install a radio and connect it to different maybe base stations or maybe a branch or maybe their headquarters. It depends, and it depends on the distance they are connecting to. The distance that the branch will be connecting to or the radio will be connecting to, that will not determine the kind of radio that will be used. Right, you can see there are different flavors, different the capacity of it, they are all different, right? So they are all different. So once this one is installed on the mast, so let me look for the one. Okay, let me show you this now. So what will be familiar with this. So this connects somewhere to be connected. So who establishes this network? It's not us. It's not be we, right? So it's the ISP or the guys. There are people that does, yes, we can still do this, right? So but that does what that establishes wide area network. Yeah, I've worked in this firm kind of maybe ISPs before, right? So once they are done with the connection, one cable, the cable that's connected, they'll do the panning, the teething and everything, balance it up, right? So a cable that connects to this radio, right? So there'll be a cable that comes from this. I think this is another one here. A cable that will comes from a network cable, those regular network cable that would quit, right? So but they'll be making use of outdoor cable. So this is looking like outdoor. So the black one, right? So those black one is more thicker. The shield is much more thicker, right? So a Cat 6 outdoor cable, much more thicker, or maybe Cat 7 thereabout. So, but it's if you use the normal one, that gray cable that we use, it's not going to last too long, right? So it's going to be prone to noise, and sun would might probably damage it. So most of the times they'll make use of the outdoor cable, right? So now the cable that comes from here goes to the POE. That POE I showed you last week. Last two, yes, I think yes, last 2 weeks POE, right? So POE, right? So this is the POE, right? So the one that we saw on that table, right? So this POE, you can see it has POE LAN. I think I showed this to everyone. It has POE and LAN. So this port here, right, goes to the I close that image. Okay, yeah, the ports, the cable, a cable will come from the cable that connects to this radio or antenna. You get it connects. It will connect to this. There's a port here called PoE, right? So this one will be in our data center in our office, right? So while the cable comes from the mast, it will be run to down to the data center, then it will connect here. Then this one here, this still in the data center, a cable will come from here and connect to our router, right? And connect to this router here, right? So it's the router we have control over, right? So the ports that the cable will be connected to, the ISP might be the ones to configure the IP address. Then the ports that um will be connecting that a cable will connect to the switch will be the one to manage and configure the IP address. So it depends on the agreement, or depends. Right. So, but the point, because we are just simulating it this way, that's why I'm just trying to explain this. Right. So not to get confused, and we can use maybe the public network, or maybe satellite to set up this. Right. So, but definitely there will be an existing network as cybersecurity guys, wherever we find ourselves. Right. So there will be an existing network. So while we are doing this is like a uniform network, because we have the GT Bank, GT Bank, GT Bank. So it's not like maybe me and Mr. Desmond or Mr. Ahmed are trying to communicate now. We have internet connection. We don't even know what has been set up. We don't know that our phone, when we don't know our data, there's a presence, network presence. We don't know, have idea about those things, right? So we just know that, okay, let's have IP address. Let's just start browsing, right? So all of those connections will be done by the ISP, right? So, but with what we have here is just to explain it, so you not fear. So if this is Lagos, this is Abuja, how come, right? So there are different ways of establishing the wide area network, and this is wide area network, right? So, and this takes me to explaining four, or there are different kinds of networks, right? So there are, you see, there are a metropolitan area network, there's local area network, there's wide area network, there's maybe PAN, there's a VPN. So even I'm adding VPN to it, right? So, but if you check online, right, so you see up to maybe 8 or 7 thereabout. But the networks we are consigned with, right, or about, is the local area network, the wide area network, and maybe MAN and VPN. Those four, right? So which I will explain now. So for the local area network, this is our local area network, right? So this is our local area network. So when these guys, they want to go out, they go out to the public, to the one. This is the wide area network for them, right? So if this laptop zero wants to talk with this guy, right? So he will tell him that, please, what's the IP address, or he will check his IP address, or just send him a message straight up like this, from here to here, just communicate, right? So, but if he's going out of his LAN, he's going to the one, to the wide area net, to a different network, a public network, right? So I don't know. So he's going to a different network entirely, right? So that's why I hope these people joining, they've gotten access, right? So it's connecting to a different network, right? So yeah, um what we did, we've configured IP addresses, we've configured IP address on this port. We've never connected this to any other router. So that means we'll configure IP address here. We'll configure you don't need to configure IP address here. Right. So now I'll quickly explain the three networks. I said we'll be wrapping up IP subnetting today, right? So we'll be doing wrapping up IP addressing today. So I want to simulate this network. So when I'm explaining the subnetting or even relating the IP address to what we did yesterday, if I'll use this, so it will be much more easier for us, right? So because we will be demonstrating and practicing it here, right? So this um okay, the local area network, it's is the connection of devices within a confined area or building, right? So this is like a limited environment, right? So it's not beyond this. So this is a local area network, and this is their local port, right? So this is their one port, their wide area network. Why wide area network is just the connection of devices or networks. Let me use the word, is the interconnection of networks. Yeah, I think that would be better. Or internetworks. When you hear the word internetworks, it means that two different networks connecting together, right? So if it's more than one, it's not just one network now. So right, so two networks or more, right? So that's one wide area network, right? So and then for VPN, okay, let me talk. Let me just for I think I made mention of four. So man, for man, right? So you can see in most estates or some environments that you get to, especially estates. I know there are some places that have been to or have spent time. They will have like I want to explain man so you understand. They will have like an access point in that estate that people from their home would connect. Right. So they will connect maybe for internet service or internet connection. Right. So it is not a local area network. It's different homes now. Right. So local area network can be in just the office, our office. So imagine our office, everybody connecting to that access point, right? That is installed maybe at a strategic point in that estate, right? So that people would connect. So and um, if you go beyond where the distance, I mean the coverage of the signal, beyond the coverage, right, you won't connect. The signal will be poor. So it is still limited, right? So but
Can't hear
within a
you. Can't
particular.
hear you. It's breaky.
All right. So can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you
Yes, I can
now.
hear you.
Yes, I
Yes, I
All
can
can
right.
hear
hear
you.
you.
All right. So for the man, I'm just explaining the man. So it's just within that city or maybe that estate, right? So it doesn't go beyond. But different homes or devices can connect, and we'll be able to. You just have one. If this device goes down, they can't connect. I'm just giving you an instance. So it can be any radio, any of these devices you're seeing here, right? So now we have um the VPN, right? So why I'm including VPN, because this is a cybersecurity course. Because by the time we go further with we want to have VPN might not be um, um maybe an example of a network or kind, right? But you might see it, might not see it. But yes, because we know where we are heading to. So that's why we need to include VPN, because we are going to cybersecurity proper, right? So VPN, which is virtual private network, right? So we um most people tend to understand VPN like, okay, hide your IP address. You want to do something maybe malicious, you need to hide your. Yeah, it might be that way, right? So, but the word VPN, right? So the I mean, what we as tech guys or the security guys should know about VPN is we are establishing, yes, is a it is okay. Let me type it here so you I want to show you something here, right?
Mr.
So
Steve, please
VPN.
kindly admit Victor. I've been trying to admit him, but it's not in.
Okay. All right, so thank you. All right, so VPN, right? So which is virtual private network, right? So take note of this. It is private, but it is not private. It is private, but it is not a private network, right? So yeah, it might be private within, but for the essence of VPN, because we are going over the public network. So over the public network, I have a server, right? So Um, let's say Mr. Gbenga he has server in his maybe somewhere in his office, right? So in the UK, right? So I have my own server, I have my network, so I want to communicate to him, right? So we are going over the public network, right? So that device definitely would have a public IP address, right? So VPN would be set up. Maybe we can call up a third-party VPN provider, right? So that will do all of the setup, right? So it depends, or we can deploy it because on our Windows server we'll be setting up VPN, right? So uh, take note, we are going over the public network, but going via a private tunnel, right? A private connection. So it's not meant for the public. It's just you and I, right? So nobody tends to see what is going between us. So we are going over a secure tunnel, a private tunnel. So that's the VPN, right? So just let me just bring it. So yeah, definitely most times IP addresses will change, right? So if someone an intruder tries to sniff in, even though it is local, right? So they would not see our actual IP address. Our IP address will change, right? So there are third-party VPNs, and there are some we can set up, right? So on our server, and there are some you would integrate, you will set up, and you will now integrate with a third-party provider as well, just to I don't know. I've admitted him, still showing admitting. All right, so I hope Mr. Um Engr and Mr. Ahmed, please, I want you both to always be taking note of maybe the recording, the screen sharing, and if you're experiencing this, you just let me know immediately. Mr. Benga and Mr. Ahmed, please. All right, so um that's for that. Right. So now this takes me to explaining the switch and the router. Right. So we've been hearing routers, we've been hearing switches, we've been hearing I know we've heard about repeater and maybe hub. So there are different network devices now. Right. So before we go into configuring these devices, we want to even have a little understanding or have a knowledge of not just this because it's just pretty straightforward and it's not nothing difficult, right? So because we have them here. So this is the device we saw yesterday. This is the switch, right? So the one that I my laptop was on, and then the one Mr. Ahmed connected his laptop to, right? So this is the actual switch, right? So this is the router. So I think that the two I showed you different routers. So we have the wireless router and we have the modular router, right? So but your understanding of how a router works doesn't it's not limited to okay, this is a modular. Once you know how a router works, irrespective of the router that you're giving, right? So you know, okay, this is the function of a router. This is the function. This is what a switch should do, right? So now, the switch, okay, let me start with the repeater and the hub, right? So let me start. They are not here, right? So they are obsolete, and I can't. Yeah, repeater is still somehow in use, right? So I'll just let me start with the hub first, right? So the hub, I don't even have a hub, right? So I don't even have a hub, but I can show you. It's similar to a switch, right? So let me just type network hub here. It's similar to a switch, right? So it's similar to a switch, right? So just say network hub, right? So it is obsolete. I wonder why most organizations will still be using it. So see, it's obsolete. I not like you can see it's similar to the switch, right? So nothing different. Yeah, when it comes to the physical look, until you assess or you tend to you see the hub in the environment in action, delaying flow of data. That's when you know oh, we are using hub in this network. So hub, how a hub works is this. So the hub is in our simulation too. So let me show you the hub here. So we can equally see the hub here. Um, okay, this is it here. The third icon from the left, right? So this is hub, right? So this is hub. You can see it has fewer ports. So it's a dummy device. So the hub is like it works like an electronic basket, right? So it works like an electronic basket. So let me connect to computers, right? So we are not setting up a hub here. I just want to explain this, right? So understand better, right? So I'm never meant to talk much on the hub for a minute, but I just want to explain this. So in case you're asked, right? So what's the difference between a hub and a switch? Or with this demonstration, you don't even need to remember the definition. You just know this is how it works. This is its behavior. With its behavior, um, you'll never forget it, right? So you'll never forget to know what's the difference between the hub and the switch. You just hub that dead or dummy device because of what you're seeing here. Now you can see this hub has 6 ports, right? It has 6 ports, right? So, but um, the hub has 6 ports. I've connected just 3 computers, right, to the hub. Yeah, it automatically shows green the way others are showing green. I don't know. This one is not showing green. I'll check. Probably I'm using the wrong ports, right? So this hub here, you can see the word, the label here, hub, right? So three computers connected to the hub, right? So the hub works like I said, like an electronic basket, right? So if this first computer here, this first computer you see here wants to communicate with this guy, definitely we'll need IP address. I'm not configuring IP address here. If they need to communicate, just like we normally do, there's no IP address, so it will not communicate. There's no IP. Without IP, they can't communicate. Take note. So if these two wants to communicate, just like we've done, I don't know if anyone has not, I would still try it here. They want to communicate, right? So, and this guy too wants to communicate with this one at the same time. In a hub environment, it's not possible, right? So it's one person at a time. So that's why I say hub is like an electronic basket, right? So it's when a signal, what how the hub works, when it receives a signal or a data, or let me never use data, when a signal comes to it, right? So if I can here say data, right? So yeah, but because hub is a layer one device, so I will not want to. All right. So when we'll still talk about OSI model proper. So I don't want us to do it when we, like maybe next three sessions we'll get to understand OSI model. Right. So this computer laptop 13 wants to communicate with laptop 14 and laptop 15 wants to communicate to laptop 14. It's not possible in a hub environment, right? So it's one at a time. So hub works like a walkie-talkie, right? So in a walkie-talkie environment, you and I can't talk at the same time, right? So it's one person at a time. So that's how hub. If we have 20 devices, if it's a 24 port hub, imagine how slow the network would be, right? So the network will be dragging, there will be collision of signals, right? So that's how a hub works. So hub is not advisable to be used in any standard network. In fact, we can use hub maybe in our home, right? So where we know, even in fact, it's not even advisable, right? So and another thing again here, hub is like I said, is works like an electronic basket, right? So it's a half duplex device, which I just talked about now. So it's similar to walkie-talkie. So walkie-talkie is 10 Mbps, the speed, 10 Mbps speed, right? So that's how a hub is. So 10 Mbps, right? So it is half duplex, right? So whenever you hear half duplex in networking or in wherever you find yourself, just know that it is a device. Most times is they are referring to hub environment, right? So a connection with that has functionality like walkie-talkie, right? So have duplex, right? So we also have okay, there's something I just remember now. CSMA CD. Yeah. So CSMA CD. Right. So CSMA CD, which means carrier sense multiple access collision detection. Right. So that's what would filter or redirect traffic in this hub environment. So if we have six computers connected and five are trying to communicate to each other at the same time, right? So it is the CSMA CD, which is the carrier sense multiple access collision detection. So it works like a last man or a traffic warder, right? So let's say, let me just indicate the carrier sense multiple access collision. I don't know if it's actual collision I'm spelling, right? So collision detector or detection, right? No, I think I made a mistake. So carrier sense, see why I spell the sense. Carrier sense multiple access. Thank you. I've seen the I've seen where the so collision detection, either detection or detector. So that's just the when it's too much, when it gets too many, even the last man, imagine the last man is controlling traffic. If the cars are much, right, so coming to him, right, so you get confused. There you see different people be shouting, cars will hit each other, right? So if the traffic in that hub environment, in that like local area network, if it's hub they are using, if the traffic is much, right, so the signal, the data coming in and out, if it's much, there will be collision, definitely. But there's this carrier sense multiple access collision detection, right? So that prevents this signal or collision of signal temporarily, just or direct traffic. You send, Mr. A has sent you hold on, Mr. B has requested to send. So like that. So that's what the CSMACD does. And the hub operates at the layer one of the OSI model. Like I said, I'll still talk about the OSI model. So the hub operates at the layer one of the OSI model. OSI model. Right. So layer one of OSI model. Right. So which is um we have the 7 layers. Right. So we have okay, now the repeater. So the repeater is quite different, right? So I think we have the repeater here. So the repeater doesn't have much ports, and then there's no much talk on the repeater, right? So the repeater, you can see one port here and two. It's just most of the time 2 ports. There's one white device that I've not showed you. So I'll see we have it there, one small white device, right? So you can even connect it to wall socket. So in fact, the word repeater, it repeats signals, right? So let's take for instance now you have this is the wired cabled repeater. There's the cabled repeater and there's the wireless repeater, right? So the cabled repeater, those are fast Ethernet cable. Your mute your mic. Mute disable your video, please. Disconnect your video. All right, so this is the cabled repeater or the wired repeater. So the normal network cable, those cables that we equipped, right? So it can't go beyond, or if it gets up to 100 meters, after 100 meters, there will be breaking signals, right? So I've encountered that at Fidelity Bank at the island, right? So where one of their tower, right? So someone climbed, we ran the cable all the way from their tower, that's the mast. So their data center, and the distance is very far. So when we got to a certain point, right? So then I was with my boss. We the cable was even beyond 100 meters, right? So when we were running a ping to we've configured IP address on the radio, right? So running a ping to the radio, it was not just replying. We equipped, we even had to tell the person that climbed the mast, please go and equip again. This is not, maybe to that equip, right? So I just thought of something, sir. Can we, maybe there's a breaking signal, right? So can we, I don't even have a repeater then. So is there, since maybe we'll bring in a repeater. I don't even know if it's even up to 100 meters. Let's just try that, right? So the next day, which was on Sunday, we had to come back again because the bank, they would only allow us Saturdays and Sundays to do anything if there's a major work, right? So when we got back there, we came with a repeater. We had to go and get a repeater in the office, right? To just connect. So we connected one end of the cable that comes from the mast here. Then this other one, we now connected and clipped one, we ran another cable. That one goes straight to the data center, right? So it's beyond 100 meters now. So but it's the repeater, what it does, it amplifies the signal or it regenerates the signal. That's what the repeater does. So let's say we are connecting these two computers, these two routers together. We want to connect this Lagos and Delta router together, right? So we are using a network cable. If it's beyond 100 meters, there will be breaking signal. So we just need to bring a repeater here. So this one from here will go to this one, then this one will go to this one. This repeater will regenerate the signal or re-amplify the signal. That's just the work. It also operates at the layer one of the OSI model. Same environment that the hub operates, right? So the hub is the dummy device. In fact, the repeater is even much more smarter or intelligent than the hub. The hub is a dummy device. So I'm going to delete this repeater and the hub that I called up, right? So now to the switch, which is the major thing, the switch and the router, right? So the switch here. So if you look at this switch is definitely, they will have more ports than the router. You'd always see a switch. Hardly will you see a switch, maybe it's 4 ports. 4 port switch is very rare. There is 5 port, depends on the make or the manufacturer. There's five, you can see 5 ports, you can see 6 ports, 8 ports, 12 ports, maybe 10 ports, 24 port switch, right? So, but routers, you see routers have fewer ports, right? So fewer ports. The modular ones, we have maybe 2 or 3 ports. Then there will be a slot that you can add more ports. Like we install RAM on our PC or on the laptop. So depends on the router. But you can see this router here, just few ports, but the switch here, more ports, right? So the switch operates at the layer 2 of the OSI model. So switches are used majorly within the LAN, right? So switches are used majorly within the LAN. You understand? Just take note of this. The switches are used majorly within the LAN, right? So the switch, take note of this again. The switch doesn't need IP address to work, right? So without IP address, the switch would work, right? So the switch would work, right? So the switch does switching, right? So let me indicate the switch doesn't need IP address to work, right? So the switch when you hear okay, let me take you back to this place here, right? So if I put my mouse here, right, um you see IP address can be configured on the switch, right? So can be configured on the switch. But if you look, you also see MAC addresses, they are there, right? So what the switch does is any computers that are connected to these computers that are connected to these switches now, the switch registers their MAC addresses. It doesn't even need their IP addresses, but we can configure IP address on this switch, right? So, but by default, IP address cannot be configured on the switch, right? So, we have to make that port logical. The switches are hardware. I mean, in terms of their behavior, right? So it's we call switches hardware device and we call routers logical devices. Right? Why do we call switches hardware devices? Or let me not even use hardware. I don't mean the physical device. Or I'm looking for it another term. Right? So it's because of MAC addresses. Right? So because MAC addresses, okay, let me use the word physical instead of hardware. Right? So we the behavior of switches, we relate them to physical or hardware, right? So because of MAC addresses, so switches definitely would have MAC addresses, right? So but not like we configure on the ports, on each port there are MAC addresses, right? So take notes, switches doesn't need IP address to work. So these are switch, this is a switch, right? So this switch is let me show you. The switch also have this is a manage switch, right? So it also has this console ports here that I connected my laptop to yesterday, but we don't have the auxiliary here, and we don't have additional ports where we can install like we saw here, right? So for the case of a router, the router needs IP address. Without IP address, router can't do anything. Let me say the switches are I would say switches are more intelligent because of that reason. Switches I would say switches are more intelligent, right? So I mean when it comes to connecting and like we need speedy connection and needs to communicate and we don't need someone to tell the router. The router, you must tell the router what to do. If you don't configure, if you don't make one or two configuration on the router will be dead. The router can't even think, right? So we'll be the one to tell the router, this is our IP, this is your gateway, this is the next network. But the switch, just connect to me, configure IP address on your PCs or your laptops, we can communicate, right? So it doesn't stop us, right? So um for the router, guys, I'm just trying to do the both at the same time. If you see here now, we have IP address not saved and it's showing down, 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 right? So the links are down, right? So the routers are layer 3 devices, right? So routers are used for internet networks, for connecting networks together. You can see here, because I'm connecting these three networks here, I connected these three networks using a router. I can't connect these three networks with a switch. If I do this, if let me show you this. If I connect, let's assume that this these routers are not here and I connected these two together. It is not a wide area network, it is a local area network, but we are just extending the network, right? So that's just what we are doing. We are just extending the network. That means we are creating more ports because we loop these two together. This one is 24 ports. So we want this one to use, that means 21 computers or 22 computers to be connected here, 22 computers or 23 can be connected here. You understand? So we are just extending the local area network. But by the time a router comes into the picture, that means two routers are connected, right? So that means we are establishing a wide area network, right? So, and it also depends on the port. So this is the one port of the router, the wide area network, and this is the switching port of this router, right? So this is the switching port of the router, right? So switches, let me tell you, switches does only switching, but router does routing and switching, right? So that's another term again. So router does routing and switching. So remember I was saying that routers are logic. I mean, switches are physical in nature, right? In their nature, That's the word. In fact, so in their nature, they are physical or they are hardware based, right? So, but routers are logical. Because IP addresses are logical. Remember, I said switches doesn't need IP address to function, right? So switches doesn't need IP address to function, but routers needs IP address for them to communicate to other networks or even within their network, right? So or devices in their network. So in that case, you need an IP address, right? So they are logical. So routers are logical because IP addresses are logical. Switches are physical because MAC addresses are physical. So just take note, right? So every other explanation or any other thing that comes to my mind in the case of routers and switches, we'll get to. In fact, um as we move on, yeah. So this would be cemented, right? So I'll still do a maybe share look for an image that differentiate this, or just do a captivation points, not stories difference or between a switch and a router. This does this, this does, and with this explanation, it will not be difficult. Even though you want to check online, it will not be difficult for you to grasp, right? So I just had to quickly explain that. Then before we go on to configure these three networks. So these are wide area networks. Routers are used for internetworks. So these are wide area networks. So routers are used for setting up one. That is wide area networks, right? So these are the three networks, right? So now to configure this router, right? So to configure this router, right? So the same way we did, right? So I'll quickly do this configuration because of time, right? So I'll get to the point where I would right. So if there's any question from the router and the switches before I just do the what we've configured here, right? So then we move on to we'll share screens and begin to set up this and then we configure, right? So any question on the switch or on the router, right? So just let me know. Is there any question or you want me to explain? Um, oh, I'm using the one. Mr. Bolaji, any question?
I don't really have any question for now. So can go
All right,
ahead.
so now I'll
I
do the
I
configuration.
have a question. I raised up my hand. I have a question.
Oh, I didn't take notes. All right, so go on.
Okay, okay. So I want to point at the router parts. You made mention of router like they are inter networks. They connect to each other for wide area
Yeah,
purposes. But what you made mention of
yeah,
that, there will be a radio.
yeah.
So is it the router that are connected to each other or they are connecting via radio from various distances?
Yeah, I didn't get that your question.
You made mention that router they are meant for networks, like wide area
Yes,
networks. Cite an
yeah,
example as GT Bank Lagos, Data, and
yeah,
Abuja. So looking at
yeah,
that point, the distance is very, very, very far. So
yeah.
is it the router that are connected to each other, or they are using the means of radio that are being masked
Is
on
the means
the
of
top of the
radio. That's why.
banks? Or
That's why. Yeah, that's the means of it. That's why I had to take you down this route, right? So the radio will do the wide area establishment. Then the cable that comes from this radio will go to the PoE, right? So go to the one port of the PoE, right? So this PoE has two ports. It will go to the PoE ports. This is a PoE, power over Ethernet. That's what it means. It powers a device over Ethernet cable. That's what it does. So it will power the radio, right? So this plug here will go this one will be in our data center connected to our power outlet. Then this one will go to our router. Still, you understand? So that radio will be connected to another radio, another GT branch, another GT B, right? So you understand, another branch. So they'll be connected to each other. Then the router is where we'll do the major configuration. If even though after they've connected, right? So if we don't connect them to our router, no, router is used for is to okay, switch does what we call collision domain. I would explain that, right? So router does what we call broadcast domain, right? So if the router is not there, right? So to create the broadcast or to set up the it's for internet works, set up the internet works. The radios will just be connected. They need to connect. In fact, the radios has been established or installed on the mast. A cable has been run at the both end coming to the to the different locations now, the GT Bank in Abuja and GT Bank in, maybe let's say the one in Lagos and the one in Abuja, right? So the cables that connect to that radius, right? So we go to a router first, not a switch, right? So we need that. So there are different ways. So the ISPs, they have their different technologies to do all the establishment, right? So I think a core computer network where we will get to do all of these things. Then I'll be explaining one protocols, frame relay, and the likes, right? So we'll get to see. But the good thing is if you understand how the connection is being done, right? So because I didn't just rush straight to connecting the routers, right? So I had to explain this. So you can see it's always is very, very common, right? It's very common. So where I worked before, right, with the ISP, we don't even know what is going on in their offices. We just connect the two offices. We connected one at two from Surulere to VI, then another branch to they have another branch, they had another branch at Ilupeju. So we're the one connecting all their branches. So what they are configuring within, whether they have firewall, they have information security professionals, we don't even know. But we are establishing the wide area network. Someone will climb and pan, connect, will scan the other radios from different locations. Like I said, depends on the distance. Distance will determine, this thing goes very far in kilometers, right? So the distance will determine the kind of radio we would use. If we can't even get to that place, then we'll use a base station somewhere, right? So maybe a base station that ISPs knows how to relate to each other. We connect to a client, maybe a fellow ISP or maybe a mast. Then we used to have one mast at Onikpan, right? So there's a big tower at Onikpan there, right? So very, very high, very high. If I climbed, that was the highest I've ever climbed in my life. That I almost fainted, right? So I had to come down, right? So the what we're doing is just to connect, install and connect, right? So then the cables goes to who run the cables and give them. So this is your cable. This is the POE. You are connected to the POE. So the POE ports. The POE has POE and POE ports and LAN ports. The cable that comes from this radio, we connect to the POE port. Then the POE, the LAN ports on that POE device, or yes, we go to their router, right? So we go to their router, right? So we'll make sure that you have a good line of sight. We've done a proper panning. So that's by the way. So now Mr. Ahmed,
So,
are you
sir,
clear?
yeah, I'm clear. I just want to clarify something again. So after all
All right.
those network has been established successfully,
Yeah,
we can ping from Lagos to Abuja or Telnet from Lagos to Abuja, and there will be a response.
exactly. We just tell her to the router. But no, we can't if we don't configure that. I say we need to configure the router. If we configure the router, we are not pinging their radios. We are only pinging our routers. Take note of that. They install the radio just to make the two connect to each other. So what we are pinging, my router in Abuja and your router in Lagos, right? So that's what you understand. That's what we'll be pinging. And the router in Lagos, my router in Abuja, and your router in Lagos, we is connected to switches, and the switches, computers are connected to the switches. So we have our LANs, right? So that's what we are trying to achieve now, right? To understand how networks work, right? So because we are not just those other guys that we are just cloned with just running commands. We want to first understand how networks are being established, right? So then we want, as it is now, even though after they've configured their router IP address, if if we don't configure routing protocols, the networks cannot communicate, right? So IP address must be configured, then routing, any of the routing protocols, which I would be explaining later, right? So must be configured on the routers, right? So I think that's for that, right? So Mr. Ahmed, can I go on? Should I
Yes, sir. Thank you.
go ahead? All right, thank you. All
Yes,
right,
go
so
ahead. Go
now
ahead.
I'll quickly do this configuration, right? So the same way, I don't think someone will say I've not configured because you've already configured, right? So if you've not configured, that's why I was taking my time is to ensure that everybody, in fact, Mr. Bolaji had to wait to configure his own, right? So I'll just be saying it, right? So I'll just be saying it, and I believe we've all configured this first network, right? So we've all configured this, right? So I will just add few other commands here, which we'll be doing, right? So which we'll be doing, right? So, but before doing that, I want everyone to now set up all of these networks, then configure the few other configuration that we'll be doing here that you've not done, right? So Then before we go on and start almost replicating the same thing, then you come back to my screen. I would explain. Okay, before we even start doing that, I have to explain IP subnetting. If not, we will not understand it. Right. So I was on the in user mode. I just type en. It took me to the privilege mode, which I just did configure terminal config t. So I'm now in the global mode. Right, so I will not do host name. I mean, I will do host name, but I will not do banner. I will not do. I will not do all those. Let me just do it. It's not take me any time. It's not take me anything. Right. So host name. I'll start with the host name. Right. So because that's Lagos, Lagos, GT Bank Lagos. Right. So host name, GT Bank hyphen Lagos, right? So hit enter. So it has changed. You see GT Bank hyphen Lagos there. So first thing now, next I want to do banner MOTD, MOTD ads, right? So this is GT Lagos, GT Lagos. No intruder is allowed or trespassers, anything, no intruders are allowed. We don't want, so anything you want to use, right? So then you end with the word character. I mean, you end with the character art. You see, as I'm doing this thing, in fact, that's why if you practice makes perfect, right? So I think you're doing the other ones. I don't think you said you forget this. Those ones that were asking me, how should I type after I'll say no, you see that I will say type art. I'll say, okay, that do interface. By the time you do it the second time, because we're doing it on the twin networks, it will be very difficult for you to forget, right? So do and then you not just stop there, right? So, but we will not come back to this packet tracer after this week, right? See when we're doing security on maybe Max VLAN, MAC address security. That's when we will be using packet tracer. So for this week, all the tags there will be two major tags like I shared via the group on everything about what we have been doing today. There are some that we will not do, right? So I will just send the tax, right? So we'll share the tax. Then, and I said the major tax is this week, right? So the two of them, and I'll be forwarding that tax for review, right? So that's where the score is starting this week, right? So based on this tax that I'll be giving, right? So now, I've done this, my banner MOTD ads, right? So I ended with the word ads, right? So now next thing I want to let me do enable secret, right? So enable secret, enable space secret. Then let me just continue with small letters, so I'll not be switching. GT Bank 54321 is the password, right? So enable space secret is the word, the command. Then GT Bank 54321 is the password. There's no need for login here. I was on banner. You see, I didn't hit enter, so it's telling me it's my. Let me just say all into that stay off. You get I didn't hit enter the other time. All into that stay off. Stay off. Right. So very bad. Right. So now enable secrets. Enable secrets. Right. So GT bank 54321. Hit enter. Right. So um the next one is so let's do line VTY or line console 0. Let me start with line console 0. So we want to password this port, right? So we want to password this port. So any user that wants to have access to this router will have to provide the password on this port. They want to have access to this router via this using this console cable via the console port, right? So via this console port, right? So via this console port, we have to provide the password of that port. So line console 0, like I said, because it is just one console port. One here, 0 means one, right? So then the password, I will type the word password, right? So password GTBank 5432, like that. So then I must type login, right? So the next one is line VTY, which is virtual teletype, right? So for telnet, line VTY 0 space 4. That means no more than 5 users can connect to this network at the same time. So password GTBank 543. Yeah. So then login. I must type login. If there was a provide the right password, you should be able to have access. Then I'm gonna exit. Type exit. If you look very well here, this is config line mode. So I'm going to type exit to take me one step backward. Like I said, if I type end here, it will take me straight to privilege mode. But exit will take me one step backward. Right. So now, so what do I want to do here? So let me start with the configuring IP address. Right. So we configured interface F0/0. So take note before you configure an IP. If you're not sure of the label, just take your mouse here and leave your mouse. Take your pointer to that port. Right. So I want to configure IP address on this port. I want to configure IP address on this port. So interface F0/0. Right. So that's it. So hit enter. So I'm in the config if mode now. Right. So I want to configure IP address on the port that is connected to the switch. It's still showing
Hello,
red.
sir. Sorry for
Right. So
interruption.
yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm with you,
Sorry
Mr.
to please. Can you expand the config this thing where you are inputting the script? Can you expand it?
I'm trying to see if I can expand. Is it bigger? Is it bigger now? I don't know. I don't think
No.
it can be expanded though.
I
I
think
don't
there
think it can
is
be
a
expanded.
minimize and a expanding logo and the minimize parts on the top that you can just click to expand the entire screen.
Okay, you mean this
So that
one
you,
here?
so that yeah, so that we can see what you.
Is it this one? I don't know if it's
No,
let me see.
no, not that one.
Which one?
Wait, this laptop 2, please. Where you are
Yes.
configuring the router, yes.
This one.
Yes. Yes. This one I just
That's
popped
what
up
I'm
now.
looking at. I don't think I've not expanded before. I don't know. I've not expanded before. Right, so I don't think so. I know I've tried it one time. I don't want to start just looking for it, right? So, but currently it's the same
It
thing
is
we've done.
possible because I do it on my laptop.
All right. So which one? Which one did you on your tab, right? So which one? Where did you? There is one I did. One of my other. I mean, I'm using a different laptop, not that my regular laptop, right? So
No, the reason why I was
there's
asking the reason why I'm asking is that I saw the how will I put it? Where you can click now those buttons that will make it to maximize and to minimize. So that is what I'm asking.
you mean this configuration so it to be bigger, right? That's what you're
Yes,
saying, right?
yes.
Um, I don't. If it's
Just to
hell,
just to
there's nothing
just to
to
expand the screen.
increase. Or should
Yeah.
I do magnify? Should I magnify the screen itself? But if I magnify, it will be. Should I magnify? Let me try
No,
magnify.
Mr. Steven,
Let's see.
Mr. Steven,
Yeah,
No,
can
no,
you
I'm.
hear me?
Yeah.
that's not what I'm saying. No,
It's
All
better
right,
like
go
not
this,
on.
this
sir.
one.
I've magnified the screen.
I don't know if anybody understand what I'm trying to say.
Mr. Ahmed. Just recap. I think I got you at one point, but I think when I think you were emphasizing on
Okay, now
emphasizing on something else again.
on this terminal box where you are trying
Mm.
to input all these things, it was very like thin. I can't even see. I need to like see my eyes on the screen before I'm able to
I
see.
think it's
But
better
when I
now.
go
We can. I
when
think
Yeah, it's
when I
okay
go,
now like this.
it is
yeah,
okay
it's
now.
better
Yeah,
now.
I know it is okay now. It's okay now. But what I'm trying to pass across is that when I go back to one packet tracer, I try to
Mm.
expand the screen. You know that there is
Do you want
on
to?
the part
Can you
of
expand?
any.
Share your screen. Let's see. Can you share your screen? Do you have it running? Share your screen. Let's see how
Yes,
you
I have
what
it.
you're talking. What you expand. All right. So call up your. Let's share your screen. Let's see now. Let
Okay.
me. Where is that magnify?
Can you see my screen now?
So coming. It's as if I'm increasing the magnifying.
I've shared my screen. I don't know if you
Yeah,
can
so no,
see
just
it.
go on. Just go on.
Okay, so now on the configuration part now, here you click here.
Can anyone see
Okay.
Mr. Ahmed's screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
So
I think I'm seeing it.
so This is the default page that you are inputting all those parameters. But if you click here, it will expand the screen.
Wait, let me just see moment first. Let me come to your screen. All right, so now I think yeah. So go on now. Just explain to us
So
again. Let's
this
see.
so this this is where you are.
Okay.
So if you click here now, everything will like be expand and then we'll be able to see it
Okay,
clearly.
is that what you is that
That's
what
what
you're
I
referring
mean.
to? Oh,
Yes.
it's the test will not be. It's just that you take the whole of the screen now. Just tell me maximize. I think I refer to that more as maximize.
All right.
Uh, um, I think that's what you're referring to, right?
Mr. Steve, I mean, that
Yeah, but
magnifier is still better.
the test,
You can see that.
the test will still, the test will still be small actually. Though it will just take the whole screen. And sometimes I want to be making reference to the diagram or moving my mouse to the topology, right? So that's why you see me
I think the magnifier
having that.
the magnifier makes sense. Yeah.
That magnify, I hate that, you know. It confuses me sometimes. Please let me just continue. Right, so it confuses me. Even right now, sir, it's like okay, my work is back. So let me just share my screen. Let me just share my screen. Mr. Ahmed. Right, so there's a task that I'll be sharing, right? So by Thursday, we will not be using this packet tracer. So it's a higher version that we'll be using minimum of version 8. So I'll share that one that the one we will use. So the task on Wednesday, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. But today there's definitely a task for us. So we'll use this one. But a task is time based. So there are two tasks. So one is time based, right? So and it's pretty straightforward. So they will do half parts. You will complete the one just like in real life exam, right? So you have to do something like that. So by Thursday I will share that. Or Wednesday, not Thursday, then should be completed or submitted before Saturday. Right. So Mr. Ahmed, let me just go on with this one. Um right. Uh so this is what you're talking about. Right. So um interface F0/0. So now I want to come back to that diagram now to show you. You get, so that means I have to minimize this. That's why. So I want to configure IP address here, right? So that I want to configure IP address on this port. So if it's my other laptop, this will be bigger. So the IP that I'll give is 192.168 dot what 70, right? IP address 192.168.70
Dot 70
dot 1, right?
dot
Dot,
1.
is it
Yes.
70? Cannot be
Yes,
70.
70.
Are you sure? Or it's 10?
Yes.
Mr. It's 10.1 now. 255
It's
dot
10, it's
255
10, it's
dot
10, it's
255
10
It's
dot
10.
dot
1.
Okay,
0,
okay, okay.
right? So hit
It's 10.
enter, no shutdown. See, subnetting will make me to come back to this to change the IP address. Take note of this. I'm intentionally doing this so that I'll come back to change this. So that I'm going to change this IP address by the time I subnet this network. Right. So I will be explaining subnetting in about maybe couple of maybe 3 5 minutes. Right. So I will change this IP address. So if you configure this IP address, take note that you are changing your IP address. No, you're not changing the IP address, you are changing the subnet mask. Take note, you are changing the subnet mask because the network or the IP address will be subnetted. So definitely the subnet mask will not be default. Right. So then no short. Remember, I will say whenever you configure an IP address, always do the no shutdown. If you want to do the no shutdown before the IP, or before you configure the IP address, fine. Right. So but just know that you will do no shutdown. If you don't do no shutdown, this port will still be dead. Right? So that's the router for you, right? So it is changing state to up. So just hit enter. So you see your cursor or you see the prompts that you are currently on, right? So now we are still in the config if mode, that's interface mode. So I'll just type exit here, one step backward, right? So then I'll do what? Do right, do right. So hit enter, that's all. So do right. So I don't think um Mr. Patience is not here. Right, so do right. So that's it. So I'm back to I don't think there's any other thing that you configure that I don't have configured here, apart from IP addressing, which I've not configured here. Right. So we'll be having 4 computers, not 3. If you want to make yours 5 or 6, fine. But if you can arrange it properly, right? So to take care of 6 computers, I would even prefer like 6 computers in each local area net. So because of we'll be seeing this thing in action. No, definitely we'll have more than 4 computers in a in standard organization, right? So and in a standard organization whereby they will have more than 20, it's a 24 port switch. So that means they'll be connecting switches together still within the LAN. They will connect one switch to another switch, one switch to another switch to create multiple ports, additional make provision for other computers to connect. Right, so I'm done with this aspect. So let me see what I've done. Do show run. Right, so do show run. Right, so do show run. So just your space bar to see what you've configured is very, very important. Right, so in case of you need to make 1 or 2 adjustments or correction, modification. So that's by so now IP subnetting. Right, so and so before we begin to share screens, so this was the image I was looking for yesterday. This particular aspect, there's a classes of IP address. So I made mention of these ones, right? So I said, okay, there is class D and class. So you can see I told you use for sending multicast signals and use for scientific and research purposes. So this is the range, right? So for the first octet, right? So we are not concerned about this. We're not concerned about this one, right? So these guys, people that travels to Neptune, Uranus, Sabi, Jupiter. So they make use of this IP, right? So it's not for right. So it's search is for something else, right? So we are focusing on this, right? So we are focusing on this tree, right? So just a quick recap, right? So a quick recap on this. It's not going to be anything lengthy, right? So the class A, right? So class A here, class A is class A. The range for class A is in fact, someone should be telling me now class A 1 to 127, right? So class B is what? Class B is what?
128
128.
to
Someone should just tell me
128 to
to
191.
191,
That's
right?
nice.
191.
So class C is what?
192
192
to
to
223.
thank you.
223.
So that's the classes, right? So Mr. Ahmed, you're the one telling us, right? So Mr. Mr. Makari. So you tell us a private IP. So okay, let me before we go to the other private or public. So what it means is that right. So we can have 1.1.1. So remember I said the for the range of IP for the range we're also looking at class A so I'll say classes of IP addresses. Classes of IP addresses. I don't know. It's sounding obvious. You know what I'm saying? Classes of IP address slash um maybe private or public, right? So, but just a range of IP addresses, right? So anyone. So we have the first class A, which is the first octet should be either between
Okay.
1 to yeah, so no, the first octet should be. I'm not talking about private. So the first octet should be for class A should be
Okay.
either 1 or 2 or 3 or 90. So the first octet should be. Let me even make this one 190, right? So this first octet should be between the range of 1 to 127, right? So by said we cannot use 127. 127 is used for loop back. So we can have 120 in our first octet, 200, 200 dots. Cannot have 300 though, can have 254. Take note. So this first octet, provided it's not beyond, it's not above this range, right? It is class A. It is still class A, right? So, but I said 127.0.0.1. Example, if the first octet is 127, it is used for loop back, right? So loop back or local host, a local host IP, loop back or a local host IP, right? So take note of this local host IP address, right? So that's it, right? Let me just put I don't want to put a comma here, but let me just put, so, okay, let me take this one down. So it will be different, right? So 1 to 7, if it's 1 to 7, the first octet is 1 to 7. So it means that it is for loop back or local host. So, but this is it. So now, Mr. Makari, you now tell us you now give us public IP address. So example of a public, I mean, example of private class A. I think that one is what I think you were saying something before of private class A IP address. Right. So in fact, the recap is question and answer. So there's no point. Right. So I think that will be faster. Right. So I will learn fast. So once I call your name, or if the person is not responding, I will call another person's name, or you raise up your hand. No, I'm not looking at who is raising up hands for now. Right. So I just want us to flow. Right. So Mr. Makai, what's the private IP address
Okay.
again? Right, so is it
For
11
class A or
for
B or
class
C?
A? Class A.
For
Class A.
class
We are
A,
still on
the
class
first
A.
octet has to be 10. 10
10, right?
dot
So
1.
10
Yes.
dot anything, right?
Okay.
So if it is,
Yeah.
yeah, so if the first octet is 10, it means that it's private, right?
Yes.
So if the yeah, so let me just indicate private here. So let me just abbreviate it here, private. So if the first octet is 10, it is private. So anything other than 10, right? So if 120 dots is public, right? So the first octet here is not 10, so it is public, right? So this is public, example of public. So anything that is not 10, if the first octet is not 10, is a public class A. But take note, we are looking at the first octet, the range. If it's above this, if it's above 127, it's no longer a class A. So for class B, the first octet should be either 128. So let me give an example of class B IP address. 128.90.87.6, right? So this is a class B IP address, right? So another one again, 130 or let's say 170 dot 7.7.8 is class B. So this is 1000. So the next one is 180 dot 180 dot anything. So these are examples of class
B.
B,
B.
right? So now, if for the private or the public, so let someone give us. So Mr. Kwenga, give us um is it class A class? Let's start with class A. Class A for sorry, class B private. Give us class B private. Mr. Kwenga, give us two examples of class B private, right? So class B private.
10.162.10
Thank you very much.
10
10
dot
dot
1.
10.160, right? Thank you very much. Don't know who is giving me something explanation. So 10.160.190.9, right? So for class A private, very correct. Or class B.
Yes.
Class B,
Class B.
sorry,
No,
I'm talking about class B, right? So Mr. Gwenga,
not
I'm talking
correct.
about class B. Hope you are sure.
Class
Class
Correct.
B,
B.
yes.
Oh, private.
Class B. Class B private. Mr.
172.
Gwenga.
172.
Is it Mr. Gwenga that is talking? Mr. Gwenga, please.
Yes.
Mr. Gwenga should finish up. Mr. Gwenga, you're the one, right?
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
yes.
All right, so 172 dot
Dot 116
16
dot 10
dot 10
dot
dot what
maybe dot 1 or something.
dot 1. Thank you. So it's just fine. So it can be what again? 172 dot
31.
31. Thank
31.
you. So can be 31 dot. In fact, the person
Dot
that even made mention,
16.
I
Dot
think Mr. Mukai,
100.
that 31 just I was waiting for that 31, right? So that means it's the first octet must be 172, right? Then the second
Yes.
octet should
Is
be
in the range of
between the range
16.
of yes 16
16
to
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 131.
31. Yes, to 31. Right. So if it is not 16, it can be 17, it can be 18, 19, 20, 21. But the first of that must be 172 for it to be a private. Right. So if you check the group, I shared an image to differentiate them. Right. So that would even still help us. Right. So to differentiate between private and public. Right. So um that's just it for class B. So anything that is not this is public. So let me just give one pretty example of class B public. So 173.16 class B public. So 15.1 is class B public. This is public. So let me indicate public here. So nobody will get confused. So I'll abbreviate it with this. Right. So public. So we can have 172.15.15.6 still public because the first octet here is 172 quite alright, but the second octet is not 16, it's not 17, it's not, so that's why it's a public. This one is 173, second octet is 16. Even though this one is 16, this one must be 172 for it to be private. So then for class C, right, so it's only straight up with the private. So only when it is 192.168, like the first octet is 192, the second octet is 168, third octet can be 90.1 or anything. That's when it is private, right? So we can have 193 let me take it down. You can have 193.168. It is a public, right? So it is public. So this one is a must, right? So private, right? So then this is public. So I'll just give one more example of public, right? So 193.168 or let me say 200.200.223. So provided this first octet is and second octet is 192.168, it is private, right? So if the first one is not 192, the one is it is not. If this one is if 200, if it's anything that is not 192, don't even bother looking at the second octet, right? So that's for that aspect. So this takes us to, so I'll just go quickly explain this, right? So because if I don't explain this, we might not grab subnetting, right? So we might not grab the subnetting. So I'm going to explain just this one. This is the one that would even take me a little time, right? So the subnetting I'll be very fast. That's the most um um if we don't understand something, we cannot configure this network. Right? We cannot configure this network. We cannot understand, we cannot configure why they are networks. Right. So if it is subnetted, right? So if the network address are subnetted. So we talked about network ID, right? So we gave example of so now this one I will just ask. So what's the network ID for a someone should give me a class A network ID, class A private or let me say class A public network ID, a public network ID for class A. The network ID. Remember, I say network ID or network address used to identify the name of the network or the name of the street. Right. So someone should give me a class A network ID, class A public network
10 dot
ID or network address. Eh?
10.0
Public,
dot
right?
1.0.
10, right?
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
God, thank you. Who is giving us this 10? Oh? So is this correct? 10.90.90 or 10 dot something, sha? Should I use what you told me? Because the first one you said
Yes.
10. Should I continue with 10.90? Right, so right.
Ye-
So this is
yes.
class A public. Is this correct? Someone should confirm this to us. Let me add the word public here.
I think that is private.
Public address, right? So public address. So 10.90.90.1. Is this a public address? Someone should help us.
No, that's a private. It's a private.
Mr. Makari. I think Mr. Makari is shaking his mic.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
You are shaking your mic now. I want to
I
see
said
something.
10. Private should
Okay.
be 20.160.160.5.1
No,
or
I'm talking
something.
about public network address, so network ID. So tell us the
You made mention of network ID.
yes.
Getting it wrong.
Right, Mr. Gbenga, go on. Let me hear you. Let me type.
Yeah, I said 20.160.
20,
160. Yeah, dot 160.
160.
Dot
And
5.
is
Dot
just
1.
scratching me. .5.1. All right, so Mr. Desmond, please look at this. Is this correct? Someone should get this for Mr. Desmond. Is this correct? Someone should confirm this for us. Mr. Desmond, is this correct? Mr. Bolaji, Mr. Victor, is this correct? Someone should look at this very well. These two network addresses for class A, are they correct? Public network addresses for class A, are they correct?
No,
If it is not correct, so if
no.
it's not correct, please give us your
Not
own.
correct. It's not correct.
All right, so
It's not correct.
Mr. Makai, right?
I'm here.
So give us, yes, give it to us, please.
Can I try?
Okay.
It's fine. Who is fine? Mr.
30,
Bolaji, right?
35. Okay.
Yeah.
35
172.
for
Okay.
class A, right? 170.
No, I didn't say 170. I said, okay, for class A, Abby.
There's public network ID, right? For class A.
Okay. 10 dots
10.
dot 160.
All right,
That's
so
not.
no, I don't think I'll have to write this because we still have 10 here, right? So I was expecting something different. So let's check our book. If anybody take note, if you took note of it, right? So before I tell you the answer, so take note of if
It's not correct.
Yes, I took
Alright,
note of
so
something yesterday, but what you made mention of now is what actually prompted me to call
alright, so
10.90.90.
network
What I did yesterday was
address.
10.0.0.0.
Don't say points again, no. I don't know, Mr. Major, saying points. Start to
So
right.
sorry,
So
dot.
alright, so you were writing based on what I said, not what you understand or you grasp. Right. So I gave you a scenario. That's why intentionally sometimes I want us to like not just we say yes, yes. I want us to make one or two errors. Instant like errors that would be obvious. So we'll now get it once and for all. Right. So no, I was talking, that's why I said network address or network ID, right? So you used to identify the name of the street, and I gave scenario that okay, Mr. Ahmed, you are in charge of a network, and I called you. What's your network address? You will not tell me. You know what to tell me, right? So in fact, I think who gave us 10, Mr. Ahmed, right? So you gave us 10. This is not a private now. This is not a public. I mean, even though you are giving us this, it's not meant to be there. That's what you gave us was public. We were looking for public. What you gave us was private. We were looking for public. Right now, come to this one. This is actually a public IP address, but it is not a public network address. I expected us to say this when Mr. Ahmed was saying 10.00. When I say public, you give me anything other than 10, then say 000 because you wrote 10.00, which is private class A network address. You understand? So when I say class A public network address, then you can say 1.0.0.0 or 2.0.0. See, I remember Mr. Desmond saying, okay, it can be anything, it can be other than 10, right? So I say yes. That means the second, the third, and the fourth octet should be or must be 0.0. That's what makes it network address. You understand? That's what makes it a network address for class A. So I'm going to write class B as well here. So what I'll do here, I'll indicate it this way so you understand. So then I'll explain. So public class uh class A, public class, public, okay. Let me just say public class B. I'll still explain this, right? Then public class C. All right, so we'll get this thing now once and for all. So this is um a public IP address, I mean a public network address or network ID for class C. Remember, I said it's only when you modify this is what's the subnet max for this. If you remember, it is 255.0.0.0, right? What's the subnet max for class B? The default subnet max. So for public class A,
255.0.0.
so someone should give me an example of a public class B network address. We don't need to fill this one. So I want in less than 2 seconds, someone should give me an example of a public network address for class B. Public network address. I'm telling you public
Hello.
because we wrote private. I want us to do
170
Hello.
170 dot Mr.
dot
Ahmed, you're
Same.
telling
dot
us something,
dot
right?
yes.
Dot what?
162.00.
162. Thank you. Dot
Dot
zero
zero
dot
zero.
zero. Thank you. So 255.255.0.0. That's the subnet
Dot
max,
zero dot
right?
zero. Okay.
Yes. So
Okay. Okay.
right. So now for this one, the class C is what? A public network
192.
address. 192.
192.
Thank you.
Dot
168.
168.
168. Dot
Dot
70 dot 0.
10.0.
Let me not write it. Let me not go. Let me not go. Someone should help us with a public class C network address. I don't want to write
193.
what to. Uh-huh. 192.
190.
193, not two.
Alright.
193 for public.
Okay. Mr. Desmond, right? 193.
Yeah. Yes. 169.
169.
Any
Dot
other thing there?
70.
Any other thing? Thank you. Any other thing can be what? 10.1, right?
Yeah.
But you already gave
Yes.
us public, but we don't know if it is network address or private or an IP address. Is this okay, Mr. Desmond? Because I just helped you with any other thing. But if you tell me it's okay, that means you just said any other thing,
No,
which
no.
is
The
not
one should
correct.
be
So
Should be
tell
zero.
zero.
me.
It should be
Yeah, the
dot
one
dot
should be
zero.
zero. Zero.
Thank you. So it should be zero, right? Thank you. So 255.255.0. So that's the
Dot two.
subnet mask. So what is telling us that? So
Mhm.
in this network, this is for this one
Please, I have a question on the class C.
class C, right?
Yes, it was stated that the two octets must be 192 or 192.168.
Yes.
That's what was being mentioned.
Yes.
So
That's for
So
I now
private,
thank
want
you.
to,
So
because
not for public.
yeah, that I know that's for private. I know.
yeah.
So for the public now, is it that the
Mhm.
two octet must change or one of them must change before it can turn to public? Because what I made mention of before was 192. I now change the second octet not to be 198.
Not to be
Does the
168
two
or
octet need
198.
to be changed? 168, sorry, 168.
Okay.
Is it that the two octet must change from
You can
the
change the
normal
two
default private?
for it to be public. If you change the
So if you
two,
change
it's
one,
public.
okay, change the two.
If you change one, it's public. For it to be private, the
Okay,
two
that's what
must be 192.168.
that
Understand?
that's what I just want to confirm.
Yeah, so if you change the two, yes. If you change one, you change half safe. It's public. So we have 193.169 10.0. Mr. Desmond, thank you. So this is the public, right? So I remember we said for class A, right? So class A would have, that means I can have for valid host range. Let me use this one. So I can have 20 dot what 1.2.1. You get, so now I can have 20.200 dot to be in my network. Oh, but the first octet must be fixed, must be 20. Right. So the first octet must be 20. Right. So the first octet, if you change this one from 20, you're not in my network. Take note. You're no longer in my network.
Mhm.
So the first
Mhm.
octet must be 20. Second must be second can be anything when it comes to
I want
valid
to be
host
200,
range
200.
or valid IP address. Thank you. Let me say valid IP address. Let me not say just say valid host range. Valid IP ad. Right. So can be 20.200.200 dot.
200. You have
Now
to
see this
change.
one will take care of more computers. Right. So class C will give us more computers. Class B we are manipulating these two, right? So for class B, these two will be fixed, right? So for networks, for class C, these three will be fixed for networks because the subnet mask tells us here that this is first, second should not be tampered with, right? So second, and so that was why we were doing this here. We're saying this one is 192.168, right? So 192.168.10.2. We gave this one 10.2, right? So it automatically gave us the subnet mask because identify that this is class A range, right? So I'm still going to change the IP address, right? So because by the time we subnet this network, yeah, we might not change, but we'll change the gateway, right? So 192.168.10.3. The first one 2, this one is 3, right? Same subnet mask. So if I change this one to 192, if I give some 192.168 dot maybe 20 dot 4, you know, 192.168 10.2 10.3. If I give some 20.4, it is not, we are not in the same network because this subnet mask is telling us that first, second, and third must be fixed if we are in this network, right? So the first, second, and third octet must be fixed. If not, you cannot communicate with us. So I'm going to try that out, right? So let's ping from here now. Let's ping this one, right? So we are pinging the next neighbor, which is ping 192.168.10 dot. I'm pinging 10.3. This is from 10.2. I'm pinging 10.3. Right. So hit enter is replying. Right. So it replies 4 times. Right. So it's then let me ping 20 dot what? 20 dot give down 20.4, right? So for it
Yeah.
to confirm. So this is 20.4, right? So if you try to ping 20.4 now, it cannot communicate. It will never communicate. This is a class C. Class C is telling us that the first, second octet in that network must be fixed, must be complete. So that's why I said we are not just running into cybersecurity. We don't understand how IP address is just one of the things that force people's hands so much, right? Or protocols, understanding protocols. You're just going to say, wow, you know, someone will not start teaching you or assisting you. You know, you want to understand IP addressing, how network works, right? So when you hear network address, you know what it's referring to, what we are referring to, right? So that's, by the way, I think with this demonstration you understand this better, right? So now this takes us to, I don't need to explain this one too much again, right? So the valid host range. So you change for this one, right? So the first and second octet must be fixed. Same thing that we'll do here. The first, if we're using class B, right? If we change this one to class B, if we change this one to class B, let me erase everything here. If I change this one to class B, let's say 170.16. This is class B public, 170.16.90.1, or let me even give it 0.1. I just want you to see something. Once you press here, it will tell us that this is class B. Because of what the first octet that was identified, that this is the range of class B. So if I want, I put this one 200, 200, 200, or 200, or use the class C, one of class C range. Even provided this one is, the first one is 170, which is class B range. Class B range is from what? From 128 to 191. So this is just between 128 to 191. So automatically you will got this, that this is class B, right? So now 170.16.0.1. Now let me give this one 170. 170. I'll give this one 170. 170 dot 16 dot, I gave this one 1.0.1. Let me give this one 1.1. Take note. You see, I'm modifying this to 1.1. Right? See what's going to happen. So this one here now, I would give this one 170.16 dot 200. I don't want to go too fast, so it's difficult for me to remember. I don't want it to be difficult. Let me say 1.3, right? So 1.3, or I will use let me say 200.200, no, or 200.100. I will remember, right? So I can hover my mouse. Then this one, just take note. I'll change this one now. See what will happen. So this one is 170, right? So dots. Let me give it 15 now. Dot 1.5 or 1.4. Right. So still class B. So let's see all of them now. This is what. This is okay. Amongst all of this one, which one is not in the same network with this other comp? Which one is out of their network? Who can tell me? If you saw what I was configuring, right? So which one, Mr. Desmond? You should just hit this one once, right? So which one is not part of the network, right? So should I over my mouse so you see? This one is 170.16.0.1 for class B /16, right? So this one is 170.16.1.1 for class B, right? So this is 170.16.200.100 for class B, right? This one is 170.15.1.4. So which one is not in the network for class B?
Yeah.
Someone should help us. Hmm?
The third laptop.
The second one, right?
No, the third one.
The third one. This third one,
Yes.
right? So who's going to help us
No,
again?
the fourth one.
The
The
fourth one.
fourth one. The fourth one, 15.
The
Yeah.
fourth one.
Fourth one. The
Thank
fourth
you.
one.
The
Yes.
one
Right.
with dot
So
15.
The fourth one. Yes. Laptop 3.
yes. So thank you, because the second octet is not 16. This is telling us that the first and the second octet must be fixed if we're in the same network. Not like this IP address is not class B or is wrong, because we are in the same network and it has been configured in our router. How do we now go out? You cannot go out. You cannot even communicate with. Not talk of going out. The router doesn't have you, doesn't know you, don't even know our router. So you are into that. So that's why we need to give you the correct IP address that is usable in our network. So I think that explains the subnet max. Right, so I think someone is saying that explains subnet max as well, right? So subnet max, IPI is never complete without the subnet max, right? So is anyone trying to say something? And so let me go on, please. If your AI is noisy, or so you can just mute. So I'll not. Right. So the broadcast address here is this, right? So the broadcast address, this is 70 70 16 170.16.1. So the broadcast address would be 255. 255. So though we don't configure it on computers, like I said, we don't configure it on any computer, right? So we don't configure it on computer. So but the broadcast address, when this user here now wants to communicate to everybody in that network, he will just use, if he's using networks or he's using what was the name of this two again? Something sent, not CentOS. I wanted to say CentOS. Something FTP, send something FTP. I will share that too with us too. Like for you to communicate. Right. So you will just type it on the web browser of that application. The message, he will type the message. Hello, hello guys. Please, I want us to meet by 4 p.m. in a network. Whether it's 20-story buildings, whether we are on the same network, we are on the same network. You just go type with the broadcast address. Everybody in that local area network, not the remote network, will take note. Will receive it in that particular network. Not people here. Oh. No, you cannot be disturbing us. You cannot come from leave your environment and you now be sending broadcast. No, it is just particular to your own environment. These guys, they will have their own broadcast address. These guys will have their own broadcast address. So that is what is taking us. This is where we are heading to. We are heading to subnetting. Like I said, this is the orga pata of them, or this subnetting aspect, and it's pretty straightforward, right? So now, I think we are cool with that now. So to go into subnetting, I will come back to this. I'll come back to this. So this is where we are wrapping up this, right? So today's last session, please, it will be a bit lengthy, maybe additional 30 minutes, please, right? So that we'll be able to, if not, we will not have any tax. We'll not have any tax. I want us to set up this. So I just want to explain this subnetting. If not, we cannot. So 30. Okay. So this is, and we made mention that if you add 128, let me add the value, let me put the value 128, 64, 64, 32, 16, 8, 4, 2, 1. Right. So if you do all of this, if you add everything here, you will get 255. So in real sense, this is the subnet max. Right. So 255 255.255.255.0. And so this is the subnet max. If you add all the values here, invisible values, 128 plus 64 plus 32 plus this. So this is class C subnet max, right? So if it is class B, this is for class C. So um let me just put class B here. If it is for class B, so class B will be this, right? So it will be 255.0.0. So let me put class A in binary. So class A, sorry, class C, I mean, class C. Then for class B, so I'm heading to summit, and that's why I'm coming to this. If not, it will not be easier for us to grab. So this will be what? I'll copy this one here and replace with this one. So it will be 0, 0, 0, 0. This is looking like 7, not 8. Right, so this is 7. So it should be 8. You know, there are 8 bits in each octet, right? So this will be 255, 255, 255.0.0, right? So if it is class A, you know, it will be 255.0.0.0. That means it will be 1 8, then 0.0.0.0.0.0 for class A, right? So now let me take this one off. So we'll be working with class C with the subnetting, right? So now remember, let me just write down one IP address. Right. So let me use the IP address we are working on. 192.168, right? So 168.1.10.0, right? So it's a network address, right? So /24. This is the IP address we've been working on since, right? So if you check very well here, if you put your pointer here, you will see /4, right? So 192.168.10.1/24, right? So, but in actual sense, it is 255 255.255.255.0. So why is this /24? It's because if you add this one, 8 plus 8 plus 8, you will get 24. If it is class B, you will see /16. Just like we configured this one for class B, you will see /16 here. You can see /16 here. They are all /16, right? So /16. So because first and second octet, they are ones, 111, like that. Then the third and fourth for class B, it is 000. So that's, I think that alone, this alone is this alone would help us to understand subnetting. So why do we need subnetting? That's the question. Why subnetting? GT Bank has different branches, right? So we came on board. They told us that, oh, we have one branch in Akota. Let's just focus in Lagos now with this example. There's one branch in Agor Palace. There's another branch at we have another branch at maybe K2. We have another branch at Yaba, like that. 5 branches, right? So they are connected. Let me tell you how this bank how they interconnect, right? So they have regions. Let me tell you, right? So like a region in maybe in a local government or in maybe an area. Let me just use the word region. So 5 branches, right? So would be like behind or will be connected to a particular, maybe they are a mini headquarter. Let me just use the word. I just want to use the term. Right. So another still in this Lagos, so they will have another one connected to, right, so another headquarter, right? So like they are getting there. So that means the antennas, the radios on their masts are connecting. So that's how most banks connect. Right. So then from the main headquarters of these regions, right, or these main headquarters, so they will now be shooting to each other, interconnecting to each other. Then you understand. So you came on board, right? So and then yeah, one of the local branch, you said, okay, we have other 5 mini branches or local branches in this, one at Agor, one at maybe Sulewe, one at K2, like that. So in those areas, right? So they were giving you briefing. You when you come on board, definitely someone would brief you. At times they don't brief you, you will find out, right? So you have to find out. So okay, in those branches, we are using a subnetted IP, right? So we're not using the ordinary class A or class B or class C, right? So we're using a subnetted IP, right? So that will take care of the 5 branches. Right, so that will take care of the 6 branches. Right, so what we are trying to do now. We are using a just a single network address, right? That will take care of multiple networks. That's the word, right? So a single network address that will create multiple networks, take care of other branches. That's what we're trying to establish. We don't want, yes, there might be several networks, but let's say let me use the word is, in fact, let me come to this. This will help us to understand, right? So, in this network here, this is one network, right? So let me explain this. You understand now. So this is the network address. So me, Mr. Ahmed, Mr. Benga, Mr. Bolaji, Mr. Victor, I'll configure mine as 10.1, Mr. Desmond 10.2, someone else, Mr. Ahmed 10.3, like that. We are one network. This is one network, right? So let me leave it at 0, right? So now, this is our subnet mask. We will configure the subnet mask. If it is subnetted, we will not configure the same subnet mask. We are configuring different subnet masks. This is the interesting part of IP addressing, and this cements every other thing we've learned on IP addressing, right? So now, what it means is that we want to create multiple. We want to create multiple networks with a pool of IP. We just a slash notation of IP. We don't want this to be /24 again by default, because this is already /24, right? So I'll bold this one. So this is /24, right? So we don't want this to be /24 again. If we're going to be subnetting this IP address, right? So it will be /25 or /26 or /27 or /28 or /29, right? So if it is, let's start with /25. If it is /25, that means this will not be 255.255.255.0 again. It can never be 255.255.255.0 again, because it has been subnetted. Whenever you see an IP address like class A has, let me just quickly put class A so you understand. Class A valid IP address. Let me just use private, or let me use a network address instead of a valid IP address, right? So class A is /8, right? /8, which is 255.0.0.0, right? So with this one, you understand it now, right? So class B is 172. I'm using private 0.0, right? So /16. So it will be 255.255.2.0.0. These are one networks, right? So right, and this is not what we want, right? So in subnetting, we don't want this, right? So if we want to subnet class A, that means this will be 9, this will be 10, it is not common, this will be 11, right? So automatically the Cisco packet tracer gave us /16, right? But if we don't want /16 nko, right? So we are connected to other branches. We're not just focusing on only our own local area network. So this will now be, let's just leave this with /8, right? So I'll come back to that aspect. So then the subnet mask will be what? Will be /25 for the subnet mask will be this. So we are going to borrow, what it means, we are borrowing 1 bit, right? So we are going to borrow 1 bit. So we are going to borrow 1 bit, right? So 1 bit here. So the bits that we borrowed, that will now determine the subnet mask, right? So we borrowed 1 bit to create one networks, right? So to create more networks, because that will take care of our other branches. At times the ISP does that for us, right? So if they're giving us a public IP address, they will do that for us. But if we want to use a private IP address that would communicate, we want to communicate across our networks or using our radios to connect, we don't necessarily might not need internet, right? So but we need a subnetted IP, right? So this is looking like 7. So this is 8 now. So this is how it will be now. 255 dots, 1 bit has been borrowed. This is /25. So if we add 24 now, 24 plus 1, 25. Right. So what's the value of this bit that was borrowed? The value of this bit that was borrowed will be the subnet mask. The value of the bit that was borrowed is 128. That means the subnet mask will now be 128. Take note of this. So the subnet mask will now be 128. Right, so the subnet mask will be 128. So Mr. Benga confirm that this is still recording. Right, so this is the aspect that I need us to would okay, it's recording. Need us to go over again.
It's
It's
still
not
recording.
difficult, right? So it's not difficult at all, right? So you get the when I tell you something is not difficult, Mr. Desmond has confirmed it like 2 times. It's not difficult. I thought, no, it's not difficult. We are together. We are doing exploits together. Let's just chill. So it's got so to get to a point that I will not even be talking again because this is just the foundation. Right. So I'm just, in fact, I'm even stressed myself. Sometimes Mr. Amber will just be the one talking based on what I've shared. Okay, these are what we'll be doing. We'll configure this. Okay, these are the commands we are deploying. We'll carry out exploitations. I'll just say, okay, no, do this, not do this, don't do this. That's what I'll be doing. I'll say, okay, Mr. Benga, let's see your screen. Oh, have you configured Alpha? I need to do this. IP addressing is, in fact, why I'm even doing much of all this stuff is because of IP address. If not, I just want to skip this. If you skip this, forget. I will not be happy when or when we come across or I'm asking questions, would just not have any idea or knowledge. Right. So /128. So if you don't know how we got this, please you let me know. So the value of this is 128. So that's the subnet max. Right. So this is the network address /25. 1 bit was borrowed. This value is 128. This value is 64. This value is 32. Like that. 8421. So this is 1. It doubles from the left to the right. Right. So it doubles from the left to the right. So now if we are if since this has been subnetted, right? Let me just erase this. Let me erase this. Right. So since this has been subnetted, right? So that means we are going to create more networks. We are not only having one network. Ones represent network, right? In this sense here. The one that was borrowed represents network. This one that was borrowed represents network. Then the zeros represent host. So what it means is that GT Bank, if there are 2 branches, /25 will take care of their 2 branches. Right? So that means they will have what it means 2 raised to power the bit that was borrowed 1. So 2 raised to power 1 is 2. So that means 2 networks. Right? So 2 networks. Right? So we have 2 networks. So what it means is that if we see /25, it's telling us that 2 networks has been created, right? So that means what are the 2 networks? Right. Okay, before I go to the 2 networks, let me indicate I want to bring this down so that I'll be seeing it at a glance, right? So let me bring this down. Let me bring this down here and I'll now scroll up. Right, so the 2 networks. Okay, I was saying that before I indicate the 2 networks. So let me let's do for the computer. So in those 2 networks, those 2 branches, how many computers would be allowed. Wow, we in a bank in a branch should we have up to two? Imagine we are using slash what /24. Remember I said /24 will take care of 254 computers, right? So in a particular network, we cannot use beyond 254 computers for a particular network. So what it means is that if this is /24, this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, so 254. So why do we need 254 computers in our? We don't even have up to 100. So let's just subnet it, and one part will be for the other branch, right? So that's just the another sense of it, right? So now slash the many bits that were not borrowed, they are 7, right? So we see 2 raised to power 7, right? So 2 raised to power 7 is 128, right? So that means in those two
128.
networks, yeah, so 2 raised to power 7 is 128. So we are going to minus 2, right? So I'm going to explain why we are minusing 2. So 2 raised to power 7, 128, then minus 2, that's 126. That means in those two networks, we'll have 200 and let me add the word here, valid networks. Valid networks. I want that word valid by networks. This one now say in those two networks, we will have 126 computers, 126 computers or devices each in those two networks. That means phones, printers will not be more than 126. So that's what it means, right? So instead of wasting our IP addresses, so let me indicate let me do this. 126 valid IP addresses in each networks. I think this is better. So 126. That means the first network we have 126. Second network will have 126. So why we minus 2, I will explain shortly. But now let me just list out those two networks for the two branch. So let me say first branch, first GT branch. Right, so the first GT branch would have this is the IP, their network address. It will be 192.168.10.0, definitely to be 10.0 slash what /25. You see how the subnet mask is this 255.255, the same subnet mask, they all have the same subnet mask, right? So 128. So this is their subnet mask, right? So I will do the second branch now, so you understand. The second branch, I will not add the valid computers yet, right? So the second branch network. Remember, I said network is not meant to be configured to devices. It's just used to identify the network. We can't configure our laptops. Our phone will not be having it. Our phone will not accept network address, right? So or network ID. Or you want to configure class P private on your laptop, you are configuring 172.16.0.0. No, you must do 172.16.1.0 or 0.1 or 172.16.200.200. The second and third of that, I mean for class B, must change, right? So for this one now, back to the subnetting. So second branch, second GT branch. Let me just use the word GT branch. GT branch, right? So second GT branch will have 192.168.10.120. That's the network address. 128, that's the network address. /25, 255.255.255 dot what 128, same 128. Right, so the same 128. So in this first network, we'll have 126 valid computers, right? So that means the first computer would have, let me put valid IPs, IP addresses, IP address, right? So the first computer would have 192.168.10.1. Second computer would have 192.168.10.2. The third will have 192.168.10.3. Like that, it will get to 126, 192.168.10.126. Right, so that's the last available IP address in the first network. Right, so in this
The first branch.
huh?
Sorry.
You're with me? All right, so that's their last available IP address. So they will have 126 computers in that network. So their gateway can be the router, can be let's say the gateway is the router. So what we give to their gateway, I mean to the router will be their gateway, right? So, but that's by the way. So now, if you, okay, I will assign this first network to Mr. Makari, right? So broadcast, right? So the broadcast address for this network, right? So Mr. Makari is the network administrator, right? Also the information security in that head of maybe the CTO or the CISO in that department or in that branch in this unit, right? So he wants to send a message to everybody in this his branch, right? So you want to send a message to everybody in his branch. So he will just use networks, right? So he will just type what he will type here. It's 192. What he will type is 192.168.10.127. 127 is the um 127 is the broadcast address for this network. So I'm going to bold this so that you see it standing out, right? So I'm going to also bold this one, right? So you see it standing out as well, right? So I bolded this one, right? So I'll do the second one. You might not even get it now. I'm sure you'll be following me. But when I do the second one, you understand it. In fact, the second one, we'll do it together. You'll see the cheats behind it, right? So the second branch, I will give another example. Let me just finish this one. The second branch, a valid IP will be 192.168.10. What will be 129. The first valid IP address in the second branch, right? So let's say valid IP address, right? Let me also abbreviate. Abbreviation is level. It's too. I just submitted one. Right. So the first one will be 192.168.10.129. The second will be what? 192.168.10.130. Like that. If the third one will be like that, 192.168.10.131. So what? Right. So you just add 126. 126 plus 128 will give you the last one. And if you add it, you get 254. Right. So because an IP address cannot be a valid IP address is not above 254. Take note. The last available IP address in a last subnetted network is always 254. Even though it is not subnetted, we are using class C. Their last IP address will be 254. 255 is a broadcast address, right? So that means the last available IP address here will be 192.168.10.254. Take note of this. With the second example, you understand this better. So then the broadcast address, if assigning this to Mr. Desmond, he wants to communicate to, wants to send a message to everybody in his branch, right? So he's going to do one IP. He's going to this is the IP he would initiate, execute 192.168.10.255, right? So 10.255. That's what he would indicate there, right? So these two networks differs by 128. 0 to 128, 129 to 255 or 254. That's 128. So that's their block size. So by this idea, I'll just add block size. So let me add block size here. Right. So with the second example, this is looking a bit tasky, very, very easy. I bet you it's very easy. Right. So because this forms the major task with the network we are setting up. Right. So block size is 128. So how did you get 128? You can see this subnet max,
Sorry,
the
sir.
value here. Yeah, Mr.
If I may ask, if you are assigning a router to give a automatic IP address, is it going to stop
Yes.
at 120, 120, what's it called? 127. Yeah, I assigning
No,
a
it will
router
not.
to give, it will not.
For a subnetted IP, it will not. It will stop at
Yes,
126. It will not. A router
it's still
will
at
never
126.
issue. Yes. If you are assigning a router, you're using a /25 for your second branch, you configured the subnetted /25 right here that we have here for the second branch 10.128. Then you give the router 10.121. I mean 129. Then you now give it /25 or the subnet mask to be 255.255.128. Right. So it will never give 255 as a valid IP address. We really want to always initiate or execute this podcast address. Right. So even this one, 127. So this doesn't mean that because you say 127 is a for loop, 127.0.0.1 is for loop back. It's different from this. So it's different from this. Right. So just understand that's the last available. So the reason why we minus 2 here is because first one is the broadcast, and the next one is the next network. That's why we minus 2. Right, so it's the next network address. Right, so I'm going to explain, do /26. With /26, you get it straight up. With /26, you will begin to answer the. In fact, it's /26. The next one will be the one answering it ourselves. So I'll copy everything here. Right. So if you don't understand now, pay utmost attention. This is the last example I'm giving, right? Because the third one is what we'll be using for our demonstration, for our configuration. Right. So this is it. I've copied. I want to do /20 um 26 now. So if I do /26, take note of this now. If I do /26, so how many bits we borrowed here? I just want someone to answer. How many bits we borrowed? So let me remove this marks. Let me remove this subnet marks because it's not correct. Let me try to /26. So how many bits we borrowed here? If it's /26, so how many bits we borrowed?
2.
2, right? Thank you. So it will be this one. So it will be this, right? So this is how it will be. So 2 bits. So that means we have this meant for the computers, valid computers that will be in that network. Then this will be creating networks for us. Right. So now what's not first thing is the subnet mask. When you see /26, right, or at times I'll tell you the subnet mask. I will never tell you if it's /26 or /25. With the subnet mask, you know that it is slash. You know the slash. With the slash, you know the subnet mask. Right. So just like when we configured on the router, we did slash 255.255.255.0. The router shows us that it is /24. Right. So you see /24, don't be surprised. But I did subnet mask. Why am I saying /24? It's the same thing. Right. So /26, what we'll do here, we are going to add the value of these two. So what are the values? What are we going to get? Right. So what is the value? Someone should help us. So 128 plus 64 is the subnet max. Is the value of the last octet for the subnet max. So 128 plus 192 is what? I mean, 128 plus 64. I've given the answer already. It's not 192. So
192.
128 plus, yes, 128 plus 64 is 192. So the subnet mass for this, right? So it's 192. Right. So that's 192. Right. So then we have how many networks now? Right. So 2 raised to power 2, right? 2 bits were borrowed. We want to know how many networks /26 will give us. 2 raised to power 2 is what? 4. Right. So 4 network. That means when you come to the branch or to the I told you we are using /26, so you just know that, oh, that means we have 4 networks, other networks, right? So you understand. So 2 raised to power 2 is 4 4 valid networks, 4 valid networks, right? So now valid computers that will be in those networks are these ones. So 2 raised to power 6, right? So 2 raised to power 6. If I let me indicate here off bits, something I would have indicated here, so it will be easy. Right, so 2 is to power 2 on bits or borrowed bits. Let me use the word on bits or borrowed bits. I always want to look for a way to make this easier. So then 2 is to power 7, say off or on borrowed bits. So that's what I should do. So you see it, right? So on borrowed bits. Then this one will do the same thing here. 2 is to power 4 borrowed. So we say, how are we going? I know we have multiple networks. We want them to use one slash notation. Very easy to manage. You don't even need to be disturbing yourself. We'll get to see it because we definitely will be working in bigger, I mean, corporate firms that they have branches. So this will be just the list of all the the stuffs that we'll be doing. Right. So borrowed 2 is over 4 is the borrowed bits or the on bits, the bits that were turned on. That's it. So equals to 4 valid network. Right. So this disk is filled up. Just a moment. Let me some optimization here. So I want to, like I said, we'll be having additional 30 minutes. So I want us to do the configuration. Right, so I'll do the configuration, then we'll share screen. I'm trying to optimize my PC. Right, I'm trying to optimize PC here. Just a moment, please. I'm getting notification, but this is not my main laptop. So okay, just a moment, please. Let me delete this. I don't need this again. All right. All right, so we can go on. All right, so we can go on now. So I'll take this again now. Here, 2 is to slash 26. Right, so 2 bits were borrowed. This is the subnet max. Right, so add the values of the 2 bits to get 192. Then 2 raised to power the bits that were not borrowed. That's 6, right? So bits that were not borrowed 6. 2 raised to power 6. Which is the unborrowed bits. Let me just put I was supposed to put this thing here, like this 2 to power 2. Then I'll now say equal to 4 valid networks. Right, so they'll say 2 is to power 6 on borrowed bits. On borrowed bits or off bits. Right, so give us what? So 2 is over 6 is 64. Right, so 64 minus 2 again. One for broadcast and the other one for the next network ID. It's not meant to be used. It's not meant to be assigned to any computer. So it's not usable in our network. Right, so that's why we're minusing 2. So minus 2 is what? We'll get 16. So that means in those 4 networks, we will not have more than 62 computers each. That's what it means. So 62 valid IP. Not, let me not use the word computers, valid IP addresses. Yes, we'll not have we'll not have more than 62 valid IP addresses in each networks, in those 60,
Sorry, please.
in those four
Sorry, sir.
networks. Yes.
Please,
Right, so
peradventure we now have more than 60. Yeah, peradventure we now have more than 64, 62 computers or 62 devices
we
in the
have, or
branch.
we have, I think
We peradventure we now have maybe the when they start growing, they have more staffs or they have more people start bringing them more devices or something like that. They are no more than 62 devices, printer,
mm,
phones, and the likes. So what can they do?
right, so we can, that's a good question. Yeah. So we can segment the network, or we partition the network. So this is how we do, right? So we have um we have the network address. We have our own network address, right? So in that organization, right? So we now have more than 62 computers, right? So we are using slash 26, right? So this is what we'll do here, right? So one of the even though we are creating additional networks or ourselves, it will not it will not be part of that subnetting network. So what we'll do, right? So when we bring in a router in that our local area network, then configure a different IP address. So this is what we'll do. That slash 26, right? So we gave the main router that is connecting to other networks in our own local area network. We gave the main router 192.168.10 dots. Let me use this one now, right? So let's say 10 dots 1, right? So the last available IP address there in that slash 26 will be 62, right? So then we give the router 10.1. So if we have more than 6 computers, that means when we bring in another router, one router will be connected to maybe the switch, because the switch are evenly distributed. So it's not even the router. The router already knows that, okay, I'm the gateway, that I take them out. So one another router will be connected to the switch. So the switch will now configure any IP address that would want to. So it might be 192.168 that is not subnetted. Right, so that is not, it can be subnetted. Right, so 192.168 dot depends, and it must be connected to this port. It must be connected to this port if you are segmenting the network. If you do not connect it to this port, you're not segmenting the network. Oh. If you connect it, you have to connect it. It has to be connected to this port. If you connect it to this port, sending the 62, 68, it will go. So, but if you connect to this one, that means here we'll now have a different IP address. We will not have 192 dot. In fact, we can even have 172.16.10 on this one that will be connected to this switch. Right. So let me even do it now. Let me do it so you understand. Is so this is it here. When we have more than, we'll just connect it here. So there are 5 ports here. We're not connecting it to this any of these 4. We are connecting it to this one. If we connect it to any of those 4, we are extending the network. Right. So if we connect to this one, that means we partition the network. We have created additional network. Then on this network, we'll now configure a different IP address, 192 or 160 or anything that is not what has been configured. Then what we'll now do is this. We'll now make this guy his gateway, right? So if we've configured, his gateway will now be maybe this is router gateway, the actual gateway, not the gateway that is related to his own IP. Will now be maybe 192.168.10.1, but his IP address and subnet mask will be different. But his gateway will be our gateway. Then we will now route it if we want to. It depends on how it is. So when we do IP subnetting and we do routing, you understand this aspect like very well, right? So, but it's not applicable to what we are doing, but you understand this scenario I'm trying to explain here. I'm giving out here, Mr. Mr. Gwenga. Did you get me?
Yes, I get you. Yes.
All right. So now it's 32 is I'm 2 minutes late already on what I was rushing to finish. Right. So the last one is um so I'll quickly just write the networks here. So as I'm doing it, we all know. Right. So the broadcast address, not the broadcast, the block size. I've not written it yet. So just take note of the block size. The block size, what it means is what it means is that in those 4 networks that we are creating, 2 is to power 2 equals to 4 valid networks that will be creating 62 in each of those networks. So in those 4 networks, right? So it will differ by 192. Those four networks will differ by 62. How, wait, those 4 networks will differ by 64, right? So it will differ by 64. That's what it means. It will differ by 64. Take note. So how do we know it when it's different? How do we know the block size? Block size. Right. So the block size of the network is 64. So how do we get the 64? So you just this off bit, right? So 2 is to power this will give us your block size. 2 is to power the off bits will give us how the network will differ by each other. Or we say 256, can say 256 minus, okay, 256 minus 192 will give us 64. Or we say 2 is to power that off bits will give us 64. 2 is to power the off bits, off bits, off bits, off bits is 6. There are 6. So will give us 64. Right. So let me move this. So you get it now. When I just want to indicate this here so you understand this is the last aspect of IP addressing, right? So I don't think we'll have any issue on IP addressing again after this one. Believe me, guys. So we have 4 networks, 62 valid computers in those 4 networks, right? So and I say it will differ by 64, right? So now the first network address is this 192.168.10.0. Let me see first branch. I'm still using the first branch. Let me just continue with the word first branch. Right, so the first branch network is 10.0 slash 26. So 0 is always the first valid network address. It's always the first valid, right? So then, all right. So before I forget, I was to do something here. Thought of doing something here before I forget. So let me just do class B. So please Please just take note of what I want to do here now. So for class B, right? So I talked about it for class B. Class B will be this. Let me just watch what I want to do before I continue. But I might not remember. Right. So 0.00. So this is how class B would be normal. Right. So this is how class B would be. This is how class B would be. Right. So by default. But when it has been subnetted, you see one here. You see one here. Right. So that means this one will be what? Will be slash. Let's say slash. Let me just indicate 192.16.0.0 slash 25. Sorry, not slash 25, slash 17. Take note, by default, class B is 16 now, right? So it will be slash 17. One bit has been borrowed, right? So because if you add everything here, it's 16. If you everything here by default is 16, if you add this one, it will be 17, right? So it's slash so slash 17 of class B and slash 25 of class C, they are the same thing, right? So when it comes to the valid the network that will be created and the valid host in each of those networks. So slash um 20 slash 17 and slash 25, they are the same. And even slash for class A slash 9, they are the same. So the subnet mask for this is 255 dot 255 128 for that first one that we did dot 0. Then if it is 2 bits that we borrowed, right? If it is 2 bit that we borrowed, it will be 128 plus what? Plus 64. That means it will be 192, right? So it's still saying 192, but what is different is that the 192 is being placed here, but if it's for class B, the 192 will be here. If it's of class A, if we borrow 2 bits, it will be 10. 8 plus 2 is 10, right? So if it's for class A, to be 10, so that means to be 255.128. I mean 255.192.0.0 is for class A, but this one, right? So let's just leave this. I will share a picture that would give this like a table, right? So so this is the let me I'll write all of the network addresses now. So we'll do the other ones, right? So this last slash that we'll be using for configuration. So slash what? I mean 26. The subnet max is what? 192, right? So that's the first network address. So second network address is this. It differs by 62 now. Take note of, like I said, this is very easy. In fact, with what I'm doing, you understand now. So 192.168.10 dot what? It differs by 64, right? So this will be 64. Right, this is the block slide. Same slash what? Slash 26. Same subnet mask 255.255.255 dot what? Same 192. Right. So then the third network is this. Third network. I'm not writing valid computer set. So the third network is this. Third network address or network ID is this. Right. So 192.168.10 dot what? Dot 64 plus 64 is 128, right? Slash 26 is giving us 4 networks. So take note of that, right? So 4 networks. So it is 255.255, same network subnet max 192. Then the fourth network is this. Fourth network address is this 192.168.10. Or 64 plus 128, it is 192. In fact, when we get to the last network, we will use our subnet, the value of our subnet max, right? Is already our last network. That's a clue. If you're adding the network, immediately you get to the last network, you don't even need to add 64 again to this. You just say, oh, since it's the fourth one, whatever value you have in your subnet max is always the last. It will give you, even though you don't want to, if you don't want to add it, it will give you the last. To give you it's accurate, it's correct. So same 192, right? So if you add 0 plus 64 is 64, 64 plus 64 is 128, 128 plus 64 is 192. So they differ, the block size is 64, they differ by 64, right? So that's the block size. So now in each of these networks we'll have 62 valid computers in each of these networks, right? So that's where we're heading to. So the first valid computer will be 192.168.10.1, right? So Second will be 192.168.10.2. Right, so the third will be 192.168.10.3, like that. 262, right? So 262, 192.168.10.62. So this the broadcast address for this first branch, right? So will be what? Broadcast ID will be 192.168.10.what? 63. The last IP address. The IP address before the next network address is the broadcast address. So let me bold this one. So I'm going to put this then. So you see how it will be very easy for us to grasp now. So this is 10.1, this is 10.2, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh to 62. Then the broadcast address or ID for that network is 63. So the second one, the first available IP address for the second will be in the second branch will be 192.168.10. 10.65, right? You know, we minus 2 because of broadcast address and the next network address, right? So which will not be used in our network, right? So just use to identify the broadcast address in a particular network and the next network address. So that's why we minus 2, right? So we have um the first available IP address to be what? 192.168.10.65, right? So the second will be 192.168.10.6, right? So the third will be 192.168.10.67, right? So what will be the last one? If you are following us, what will be the last one? No, we're adding 62 to it, right? So this is the last one here. The last available here was 62 or is 62. The last one here will be what? You just say 192.168.10. You just, in fact, you know that
125.
the next,
125.
126, you almost got it. So it's 126. So 127 will be the broadcast addressed, the broadcast ID for that network, right? So it will be 192.168.10.127. You know, the next one is 128, which is the next network now you get for the next branch, for the another branch. So that's why it's it, is 127. So the last, you just minus 2 from each network, just minus 2. Right, so when you minus 2, you get your last available IP address. Then the broadcast address will be the second to the last, or will be after the last available or usable IP address, which is 127. So this one now is what? So what will be the first? What will be the first available IP address here? Right, so someone should tell me what will be the first. Right, so the first available IP address will be what?
129.
129. Thank you. So the second will be what? 192.168. Dot what?
130.
130, like that. So 192.168.10.131. So what will now be the last available IP address? 10 dot what? Last available IP address will be what?
190.
90.
190.
190. Thank you. So this is
190.
how it is. So now for
Yeah.
yes, 190, 190, that's correct. Absolutely correct. So that's the last available IP address. So what will now be the broadcast address for that second branch? So the broadcast address will be what?
190,
191.
168. 190,
192.168.10. Dot what?
168.
Huh?
191.
191.
191.
191.
191. Thank you. So that's the broadcast address. So now this last one here will be what? First available IP address for the last network will be 192.168.10. Dot what? The first available will be what? The first available IP address will be what? Yes, Mr.
193.
Gbenga, tell us.
193.
193.
193.
Thank you.
193.
So, right, Mr. Makar. So now 192.168.10.194, the second, right? So the third one will be 192.168.10. Dot what? 195, right?
95. Yes.
195. So what will be the last available in that network? Right, so the last valid.
254.
Two what?
254.
Thank you.
254.
254. It is always 254. Don't even forget that. The last available when you're it's always 254. Right? So it's always 254. So now all will now be the broadcast address for this network. For this
Two
what will
five
be the
five.
broadcast?
Two
Thank you.
five five.
So
192,
there's no next network. Now
168,
that's why I say there's no
255.
256. Yeah, so 10.255. There's no next network address. We are done with it. Right? So we are done with this one. And so it's the same thing that applies to even though we are doing /26. So if you have um how many branch, if you have /27 will give us the next one will be 8. Right. So now this is the tax now. Right. So this is what we are doing together before we start configuring. We need to answer this. Right. So we're not going to do the calculation. I'll just guide you. Then we'll begin to configure. Right. So because of our time today would be really really we be like this because of subnetting, right? So let's do this one now. 192.168.10.0/27, right? So we're
Hello,
going to
sorry.
get the subnet max, right? So
Hello.
Mr. Ahmed, yeah,
Sorry, I hope you are recording.
yes please. Right. So when it happens, Mr. Benga, Mr. Ahmed.
Yeah, we are recording. It's
Right.
working.
So all right, so 255. So what will be the last? What will be the subnet map? Okay, let me just copy this now. So I'll make it easier for all of us. 'Cause I want us to shoot straight to the configuration now. Right. So you see this week's tax, right? You will definitely get messages or calls from some persons. Right. So you got it correctly, you get a message or a congratulation mail or something, or maybe a badge. I mean, maybe something a plus or something you get if you get it correctly. I assure you, right? So it's very easy and trickish. So we are doing /27, right? So okay, let me leave. So how many? We are adding how many bits? One more bit, right? So I want us to answer now. We are doing it because we're going to configure. So we want to use /27 to configure our network. So we are adding one more bit, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right. So
Yep, yep,
because
yep.
yeah, so we have
Yes.
24 here, 24, 25, 26, 27. Right. So this is 27, right? So you get it. So what would be the subnet max? Someone should tell us. I don't want to say we start calculating on our book. Give us, let's look at it and get the answer because of time. And so what will be
224.
the subnet max? 224? So if you don't know how Mr. Ahmed got this 224, it's Mr. Ahmed, right? So please, so how did he get it? Mr. Desmond, you got it?
Yes, 2 to 4.
224, right? Thank you. So if you don't know how, in fact, if you don't know how he got this 224, this is the first thing you should know. If you don't know, please tell us now. Let's rephrase or we show you how we got it. Right. So if you don't know how we got this 224, please tell us. I think everybody know how we got it for. That's what I'll assume, right? So because we're going to be configuring this, right? So and so /27, it's the subnet matter /27 is going to give us 224 255.255.255.224, right? So if it is /27 and /8 9 10 10 no 11 /27 and /11 is the same thing. 224 and /16 17 18 18 /11 /18 /27. They are the same thing. 3 bits borrowed in addition to the default, right? So that's that. So now we have how many networks will this give us now? If you're following us, if you're following, like I said, this is the same everything, it's the same thing that follows, right? So 2 raised to power what? How many bits were borrowed? Right. So how many networks will this give us? 3, right? So how many networks? 8. No, to give us 8. So
8.
right. So 8 networks
Available network.
total. Right. So total networks that
And
this /27 will be
available.
giving us 8. Right. 2 raised to power 3, the borrowed bits. right? So I don't know if I should indicate the borrowed bits here. So 8 networks. So now in those 8 networks, so how many valid computers will be in those 8 networks? So now let's do this together. So 2 is to the power what?
Two.
Someone should help us.
5.
2 is to the power 5.
5.
Thank you. So will be
5.
what? 2 is over 5 is what? If you punch your calculator, you will get 32. So 2 is to the power
32.
32. 32. But we should minus 2 or
For-
not? Should we?
Yes, we will minus
Yes, we should.
Minus 2. Yes, so it will be what? 30
30.
valid
30.
30 valid IP
borrowed
addresses
valid IP
So
address.
why don't you minus 3?
in each
Why
I
do
didn't
we
get you.
minus 2, please? I need an explanation for that. Why must it be 2 all the time that we minus?
For the broadcast now.
For the broadcast and the next network. Right. So you know I said this one cannot be
Alright.
used. We cannot assign this to a computer. Right? We cannot assign this to a computer.
Yes,
We
yes.
cannot assign broadcast and the net. So it's also you get so that's it. Why should I go on?
Yes, go on, it's clear.
All right. So now that means you take valid IP addresses in each networks. You can see that it's very easy. All of those stories. That's why I say I know how to form it to all give me the answers. Right. So now what next? Right. So we want to first calculate all the networks. Right. So let's quickly write the networks because it's these networks that we are getting from /27. That's what we'll be configuring. That means we are going to change the subnet max on the net. Those what we configured on our data, we are going to be changing the subnet max, right? We're going to be changing this. Yes, the first thing we change is the subnet max. The IP address will remain the same for now. Then the other networks is what we'll be creating. So the first available network, I think, will be what 10 dot what 10 dot what, or will be the first network. The first network ID will be what?
28.
Someone should help us. Will be it?
28.
No, 0. The first is always 0. Take note, the
Oh,
first is
sorry.
always 0.
0, yes.
Is always 0. Right? So same subnet max. Right? So for no one has is there anyone that will tell us the net how it differs? Like it's 8 actually now. So how many it will differ by what? So the subnet max is 224. Thank you. So let me put first network. Let me just use first network so that there'll be a difference when you're looking at it. Right. So first network ID, first network ID is this. Right. So what will be the next network? Before we start adding valid IP address in each network. So what will be the second network? So I think that's where we would all need to um look deeper first. Right. So second network ID will be what? What will be the second network ID? Second network address will be right. So this is it here. So just see that's this 2 is super 5 that you 2 is super 5 that you calculated here. It will differ by it. That means the second one will be 32. 10.32. The third one will be 32 plus 32, 64. You ask 32 again, it will differ by 32. You get. So that's just the cheat, right? So it differs by 32, by 32. So that off bit, 2 is to power, that's off bit. That's the value of those off bits, right? 2 is to power 5 of 2 is to power 5 is 32. So that's what, not the value of those off bit, I mean 2 is to power 5, 32. So the 32 that we got here, right? So it will differ by 32. Or better still, most times I prefer to just say 256 minus what? Minus 224 minus your subnet max, you will get 32. 256 minus subnet max, you will get what? You get 32. That means the second network ID will be what? Someone should tell us now. 192 dot what? Right, so 168 dot what? 10 dot. Mr. Desmond, tell us.
64.
Are you serious?
He said 32.
No, are you serious, Mr. Desmond?
No, that's the.
2 power 5. 32 now. So I want to divide by 32. And if you say 256 minus 224 is 32. You get, so that means this one will be what? 32. Same slash 27. Same subnet mask. Right. So what will be the third network? Third network.
64. 64.
Third
Okay.
network
Okay.
ID will be
Okay.
192.168.10.10.64
192.168.10.64.
64.
slash 27. So 255.255.255.what? 224. So will be the fourth network now. Fourth network. Fourth network ID. So hit it. So 192.168. Someone should tell me before I get there. 10 dot what?
64.
What will be the fourth network? Huh?
97.
96. 96.
96.
96.
96.
96. Thank you. Because I have this
The
thing here.
plus
Most times,
27.
if you say something wrong, it will be somehow. I'll just close my eyes and open my eyes and say, no, this is not. This is obvious. 97 cannot be a network ID. You get. So because I just know how, like, the IP address is they stored it inside of me. So it's very, like I said, it's very very easy. It's just you coming across practicing configuring. As you configure more, you understand, right? So what it is 96. Oh, that's the valid network address. So slash what?
27.
Let me give the space, then slash 27. So the subnet mask is the same thing, 25.255.1224. So what will be the fifth network? So take your people are the one telling me. So it's what
128.
you told me.
128.
128. Thank you.
192.168.
192.168.10.128
10.128
slash
slash 27.
27.
thank you. So
Subject mask.
255.255.255.what?
Dot
224.
224.
So this fifth network will be what? This network ID will be what?
160.
160.
192.168.10.160. Right. So these
That's
networks are
27.
just 255.255.25. So how many networks are we heading to? We're heading to how many networks are we looking at?
8.
How
1, 2,
many?
3.
8.
Thank
8.
you. So seventh network will be what? Seventh network ID will be what?
192.
192.168.10
192.
dot
192.
192.
192. Thank you. So slash 27 255.255.255.0, right? 224. So the last network will be what? You see, intentionally
224.
I'm writing I'm calling out, I'm just doing the network alone. Because if I'm doing the host, we might get confused. If I'm doing network and host, we might get confused. So we just only put the networks first. They will not be doing the valid host. It will be very easier. So that's like I said, trust me, this is very easy. Right. So network ID is what again? That's the last one now.
Yes.
192.168.10
222.
dot what?
224. 224.
224.
224.
You can see now
224.
is it not your subnet max value? As I said,
Yes.
once you get to the last network, you just why am I adding again? Maybe if you press a calculator. It's not my subnet mask, it's not 224. The last network address is 224 direct. So that's just how it's gonna be. So 255 dot what? 224. That's your last this thing. I didn't indicate this slash, right? So slash 27. They are all slash 27. The same subnet max. They all have the same subnet max. So now the first available IP address. So it will be what? 192.168.10.1, right? Right.
Yes.
So the second will be 192.168.10 dot what? 2, right? Third will be
2.
192.168.10 dot what? 3.
3.
Fourth will be 192.168.10 dot
4.
4. So to what? 192.168 what? Dot 10 dot what?
25.
10 dot what?
26.
20?
25.
Who said 25?
20.
Who said 26? Who is giving us? Wait, let me bold this. Let me bold this. Let me bold this. If
26.
I do not bold this, if no, let me just hold on. I don't want us to get it wrong like many times. I've heard two different wrong answers. So let me first of all bold this because I know bolding this will help us. I'm serious. So let me just bold all of this. In fact, I think from here I don't need to bold again. If you will get it now. I don't need to bold the other ones. So now tell us what's the last available IP address?
The screen is not moving from my end, though. Okay, it has moved now.
Okay, it has moved. Okay, thank God. So now, what's the last available IP address? That
Eh?
What's
30,
28?
30, 30, 30.
Who said who gave us 30? Give us 30. Mr. Ahmed, right? Or
No, Wenger.
Mr.
No,
Mr.
no,
Benga,
no.
thank you. You were saying no, no, no. That's how I was like very like Mr. Benga, I owe you something. I wanted to tell you what that thing is. Right. So it's a solution to something. Right. So which I've been so you so I owe you. Right. So that's 30. So Mr. Benga, for you to say 30, that means you understand it. Right. So for those that yeah, is there anyone that doesn't know that it's 30, or you have a contrary answer to this? Or you don't even know how we got the 30? Let me know before because I want to explain. Right. So if you don't know how we got the 30, I if you don't I say don't know if I don't know how I arrived at the 30. Oh. thank you. So Mr. So this is uh 10.1, right? 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, like that. So we are looking for the last available IP address, right? So you say 30 valid IP addresses in each network, and in this first network, if you add 10 0 plus 30, you will get 30. Or let me never say 0 plus 30. If I'm looking at this subnet max here, the next network address, you know, if you do 10.31 is the broadcast, 10.32 is the next network address. You get. So let me do the broadcast. So you saw broadcast address. So the broadcast address is 192.110.31. 10.31 is the broadcast address for that network. So the last available, because we say 30 valid computers in each network, that means 10.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 30, right? So if you have 31 now, is the broadcast address. I heard someone was saying 25, right? So 30 valid. Do you understand Okay. now? Okay. All right, so 30 valid. So for this one now, if we do the second one, the third one, we will not do the rest. We're not doing the rest though. It's just 2 or 3. Then we'll now start configuring. So it is 192.168.1 10 dots. 10 dots what? 10 dots. Someone should tell me what's the first available here? 10 dots.
33.
33. Thank you. So 192.168.10.34. Like that. 192.168.10 dot what? 35, right? Right, so let me just end it there. So what 192.168.10 dot what? What's the
62.
last available there? Eh?
62. 62.
Thank you. 62. If you say 62, you've gotten it already. The next one you will know. So okay, let's look at the broadcast. Right. So let's look at the broadcast, which is easy. Right. So 192.168.10 dot what? What's the broadcast address?
63.
Thank you. 63. 63 is the broadcast address. Right. So if you don't know how we got the 63, take note to before the next network. I said we minus two, a broadcast and for the next network. So 63 is is not the last available IP address. So right, so is the I don't want to call it is the broadcast address for that network. Right. So the next network address is 64. So before the next network address, broadcast comes first. So 192.168. So this is the last one we are doing. Right. So this third network. Right. If I say let's do the last up to last, we might not be able to configure. So we are going to start configuring. I'll configure and just show you share our screen. So 10 dot what? 10.65, right? So 65.
5. Yes.
192.168 dot 10.66, 192.168 dot 10.67. So 192.168 dot 10 dot. The last one is what?
94.
94. 94. Thank you. So once we watch this to understand this video, for me to understand this submission, like I said, it's very, very easy. There's nothing here, right? So the essence of it is when we are managing networks or you are monitoring network, you are seeing subnetted IP address, you know where it's coming from, right? So because I've used a monitoring tool called NAG back then in 2013 when I was with one firm, right? So we're using it we installed it we're using Observer Nagios. It was running on I think maybe CentOS or Fedora then, right? So monitoring large networks. Fountain of Life Church was there. Fidelity, different branches. So they have other branches. So just be seeing their slash notation when we are monitoring, right? So for someone that doesn't have, like, you say, why is this one 161? Why is this one 162? Why are we not having, you get confused. But when you see a slash 27, and you now see once is you now if you see slash 27, you see 10 dots. This first one here is 10.97, right? Or let me use this one. If you see a slash 27, you see 10.33 as my IP address. You still see a slash 27, 10.1. It means that they're not in the same network, but they have the same subnet max. You
Subnet,
get, they're
subnet
not in the
mask,
same
yes.
network,
Same,
but the same
same.
subnet max, right? So, but it came from the same slash notation, right? So that's what it is. So what we want to do now, we'll configure these things on our router, right? So then we'll now configure routing so all the networks can communicate. So that's what we are trying to achieve, right? So I think I feel we are good with this. So let me just last this last BT. Then we'll begin to configure 192.168 dot. The podcast address is what for this last one, this third network. That's where we are stopping. So the podcast address is what? What's the podcast address?
64.
95.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Uh,
95.
I I've already said thank you to you. So all right, let me save this Word document. I think I'll still share it to the group. So let me save it. Um I don't let me just give it IP addressing acts or practice. So anyone. So So I will share this Word documents for those that would want to review. Right, so the rest we didn't finish it up. So continue that one. So now back to this. So this is where we are. So this is why because of subnetting, that's why I had to quickly do that. Right. So now I've configured I need to have access to my router again. Right. So Mr. Mr. Makari, you have your network working, right? Makari will
Not
share your
working.
screen
Oh,
first.
my
What
network is
happened
not
now?
working. Oh, I've not connected it to, but I can share it. I'm trying to connect it. I didn't put it
Which
up
one?
yesterday, and I tried
This one?
sometime.
Is it this first one?
Uh, the
This
one I was
first
trying
one?
was it not the one with this one that we're doing today, or the one we did yesterday?
No, no, no. The one we did yesterday now. This thing was working fine now.
No, it was one thousand someone.
What's not coming up? Let me know. This
This is it.
this red
Okay.
one.
Should I share? Should I
No,
share
no.
my
Let me just
screen so
quickly
you
see.
see?
Let me just show you this right. So you share. You be the first person to share. So we'll see why. So I gave the Lagos. I gave the console password to be Lagos five four
Okay.
three two. Right. Lagos 5432. That's what I gave it now. Is it not Lagos? Sorry, GT Bank. I think GT Bank 5432. Yeah, I remember now. So again, right. So the enable secret is GT Bank 54321. Right. So I'm in the privilege mode now. Right. So now this privilege mode here. Right, so I want to configure what we are doing first. Let me show you. Right, so we're going to go into the interface F0/0. Right, so we're going to go into the interface F0/0. You will just type that IP address again. Don't need to do no shutdown because if you don't know shutdown, you see IP, you say IP space address. Understand? And just do 192.168.10.1. Same IP address. So for that interface F0/0. If you want is F0/1, take note. But you are changing the subnet mask to 255.255.255.224. Then just hit enter. So when you take your I've not saved yet too. When you take your router, your cursor here, you will see the change subnet mask. You can see it's showing /27, right? Who is saying /27? Are we all saying /27? Is anyone not saying /27?
Yes,
Same,
yes.
right? So
It's,
that's what.
it's too
Yes.
small. I can't see it. Oh.
Oh, let me do it again.
Ah,
Look at it. Come very close. You see the
mm,
IP 10.1/27. I typed 224. but automatically it's showing us that it is /27, right? For F0/0. Can you see it? Can you see it now? 10.1/27. If F0/0 fast Ethernet. I just hovered my mouse on the router. Right. So now I'll save. I'll save. Right. So I'll save. So take notes. So this is what you all do. So I'll just say end. Let me just do end straight up and write. Say write to save. Right. Double save. Right. So now the first computer here. Right. So we have what? If you're on this 10.2, it's still fine. But you're changing the subnet mask. You don't see it on 10.2. Right? So the subnet mask is giving us 255.255.255.0. By changing this to 224. If not, it can't go anywhere. Right? So the subnet mask matters. Right? So even though it is class C, right? So and you say all of them, they're all class C, same 192, say 10.2, 10.3, 10.4. If their subnet masks are different, they cannot communicate. Take note. So the gateway will be what? 192.168.10.1. Same routers gateway, because that's their when they are going out. I think I made a mistake somewhere.
You made a
Let me confirm.
mistake.
10.2. Right, so let me do it again. 192.168.10 dot what? 10.1. Right, so 10.1 is the gateway. So this will be 10.2. This will be 10.3, 10.4, 10.5. Their gateway will be 10.1. All their gateways will be 10.1. Their subnet mask will be 10.224. The same thing. Right, so I'm just going to do this label, then screenshot this and share to the group. We'll begin to review. So let me do the label here. So I'll tell you the IP addresses. So the first one that we give, and also want to manage IP addresses. This is /8. We have to get 8 networks. And if you calculate this, right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it will be more than 8 actually, right? So, or if maybe up to 8. So, but this first one will be 192.168.10.1. So this second one will be, we are going to use, okay, let me just type this out first, then I'll explain. 192.168.10.2. We are still going to use the same IP address. So I mean the same um what's it called? A different IP address in the same no sorry, a router cannot have um in a router we can't configure this kind of router we can't configure two different IP addresses of the same network. We cannot. A router will not accept it if you try to do it. So you will configure two different network addresses with two different IP addresses from two different network addresses. That's what we can configure. So that means on this one we will do um 20.1. Yeah, if you want to do it. So this one will do 192.168.10. Sorry. I will still give this one. Let me give this one 20.2 to manage the IP. Then this one will be, what am I even saying 20? It's not 20 now. Someone should correct me now. I'm saying 30. I'm saying 20. It's not 20. The first one is what? 10 dots.
10.1.
Right? So 10 doesn't change. So it will be 10 dots what? 30. 33. This is what it will be. 10.33. Right? So this will be 10 dots. 10 dots. I'll give this one 10.34. Right? So a different same network with this, but you see, this is one network. This is the first available IP address of one network, another IP address of a different network. So let me show you here. Right, so this is 10.1 for this network. Right, so this is 10.1, right? So a router cannot have in a router, we can't configure 10.1 and configure 10.2 on the same network. Router will reject it immediately. You can't have it, is not possible. If you are configuring a router, the two ports, you now give one 10.1 and give another one 10.2. Router will say no, it's not gonna work. But you can give this one 10.1 and I give it maybe 10. The next port, the same router, maybe 10.33 or 10.65. That's when it will work. Right. So I'm just labeling, right? So I've not configured yet. So but that's what we'll do. Right. So okay. All right. Okay, let me just finish the label. I wanted to, so 192.168 192.168 or 10 dots 10 dots what? So let me give this one 10 dots. I give this one 10 dots 32, 33, 34. So I give this one 65. Right. So 65 the first available for the third network. So 192.168.10.90. The network address is 10.96, right? So but we are giving this one 10.97. So I was still going to use 98 here. The second available IP address in that link on that network, 10.98, right? So I'm not configured, I'm just labeling 192.168.10.90, 10.120. 128 is the network address, so we say 10.129. So that's what we'll configure on this router, right? So then we cannot do routing today because of time. So but let's just do this one, right? So let's do this one, right? So with this label, it's the same thing you will do, right? So it's the same thing you would do, right? So this is just the tax. You do this one in my presence, right? So the same thing you configured here. I mean, those what would be different? It's not actually they are not the same actually. The IP address will be different. The password can definitely will be different, right? So the password should be different. The gateways are different. So I mean the same process. What you're doing here, the same process you do here, right? So but just like to be um different commands, or not the same command, different configurations. Or so let me stop sharing now. Let me stop sharing. So who is ready to share screen for us? I think today is looking at as if um who is ready to share screen for us? Let's just tackle this so that we have our tasks for the week. Who is ready to share screen for us? Who wants to share screen for us? Mr. We are done with everything IP addressing today. So any other thing is just further research or maybe one or two brush up personal or share one or two materials if need be to the group. So who's going to share screen for us? Mr. Agbenga, are you ready to share your screen? Mr. Adeleke, share your screen, please. Mr. Adeleke, can you hear me? All right. Okay, thank you. So now, so let's look at this. So let's do this together, right? So we're going to connect these three routers together. So that's the first thing, right? So you're going to be connecting the three routers together, right? So while he's doing that, I'll be sharing the so you know how to do it now. If you can, if you were not here when we're doing it, please, Mr. Adeleke. Right. So this is how we do our remote sessions. If you're the one, if you are guiding us, not for because today is different, right? Because I did more of the talking. Right. So most times when you are the one demonstrating, because sometimes Mr. Ahmed will be the one, I mean Mr. Agbenga will be the one installing. You say, okay, I'm installing now. Have you guys installed? What's the update? Right. So I'll just be guiding, okay, no, let's see this person's well, just right now because you are sharing screen, you will unmute your mic except where you are is noise, or you just talk because it's late, right? So you unmute your mic, right? So guide us, right? So you are connecting, like I'm connecting now. This is the Lagos router, this is this one. I'm connecting, I will add this one. So we'll know that something is flowing, right? So now let's get Mr. 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 Deleke. Whose screen is this? This is Mr. Deleke's screen. Yes, Mr. Deleke's screen. Go on. So connect
Yeah, this is
the
my
three
screen.
routers together. Right. So now the first router, double click on it. Double click on it. Right. So double click on the first router. So let's all no, have you added those ports already? You've not added the ports. Right. So the ports are not
I've
there.
not
So
added them.
thank you. So that's what I was saying. Right. So you have to go and double click on that router and to add that port.
Okay.
Yep. So that's what you do. So I think I need to save my configuration as well. Just a moment. Let me save my configuration. Okay. All right. So go on, please.
Please, I did not join. I joined late when you start joining the router
The
together.
computers,
So
right? So you come to click on week 1C, scroll down. So let's look at the screen. Come to week 1C, right? So just scroll down to week 1C, the fourth to the last. Right, so the fourth to the last. Stay on that line. Have you seen it? Week 1C. Yeah, so click on it. So hope you are seeing Mr. Adeleke's PC. Yeah, you've clicked on it, right? Thank you. So now
yes,
power off the router first. You have to power off the router. So that's the port we need, the serial port. On that first router, mine, I gave mine Lagos, right? So the first router, we're adding only just one port, right? So Mr. Adeleke, so have you powered it off? So if you've not powered your
yes,
own, if you are following us, right? So Mr. Makari, have you powered your router? Or you are still connecting, you are still adding routers and switches. All right, so power on drag that port, you get, or you give me control, let me help you. Right, so drag that port and just no, just continue, don't give me control. So drag that port to, yes, that's it. Then you power it on. So that's the serial port we're adding now. So you have to power it on. Power it on. Power it on. Thank you.
I've on it.
Right, so now you can close it. You can close this one. So do the same thing on the other ones. So the second one, you will add two ports because one will be connecting to the left, one will be connecting to the right. So that
Be
second one,
connected.
you're adding two ports. Right, so let's do that. So let's quickly set this up. Then I will explain the tax. So also there are two different tax. So there's one major one that will not be doing. I will just guide you. And I'm even looking at maybe we're having a session maybe on Wednesday this week. Right. So if not, if I give her the tax, except you understand. I mean not this tax, so this tax is very easy. The one that will be coming on Thursday or Wednesday. So we will
I've,
have a
I
I've
think
session.
we should
connected.
agree.
I've connected
Sorry,
all of them.
sorry.
Right. So
I think we should. I think we should agree that we should have a class during the week, so that it's not, so that we know, so that everybody
no,
will
no,
know
for
now.
this,
Let's just.
yes. All right, so let's have a session. Um um Let me see, just a few seconds. I'm having meetings that every day I have trainings and meetings. So but see that Wednesday, I'm seeing the looking at the possibility, right? Yeah. So Wednesday is fair, is okay. So let's do Wednesday. So let's do Wednesday, guys. So we'll do Wednesday by 8 p.m. since it's a weekly normal working day. So we'll do Wednesday by 8 p.m. So we'll be looking at routing. So what will be we are adding more but before Wednesday you must have done all the necessary configuration. If not, you will not even flow because we're not coming back to adding ports or configuring IP addresses on the router. All IP addresses would have been configured. That's the task. And so by Wednesday, we'll now be configuring routing and then one or two commands. It's very easy and it's very easy. And so Wednesday by 8 p.m. we would meet, right? So Mr. Makari, Mr. Victor, Mr. Balaji, and Mr. Gbenga. So meet by Wednesday. So continue, Mr. Adeleke.
I've connected all those ports to all
Right, so you've
the.
connected. Right, so now use your serial DT cable to connect all the you see your serial DT cable. So if you give me control, I'll just be directing you with my mouse. So approve control. Just approve my control on your PC. Right. So I've requested for control. So no, I will not click, I'll just direct you. Right. So if there's need for me to click, I'll click.
Okay.
All right, so you can see my mouse, right?
Yes.
Can you see my mouse? So click on that, please.
Yes, I can.
So let's do this with him. If you know you're not doing it, or maybe I use a mobile phone, please make sure you do it right. So we just want to do the first one together, then the tax would come in, right? So then you have your two serial cables, I mean ports there. So connect it to the one you want to. So the next one,
So use that serial slash zero, 0/0 for everything
which one? No,
from
it cannot
router zero
be
to router
serial.
two.
There is no router 0, it's
Say
router
what?
1 to 2 or 3. Okay, you mean the indication? Okay, router 0, router 1, router 2.
Should I put what did you I don't
I
understand
think
what.
Mr. Bolaji is asking a question, but I didn't get. Or is it who is asking a question?
Hey, can you come
He's asking
again?
that is this area 0 plus 0 that we are using throughout to connect those routers from router 0 to router 2?
I still did not get the question. Right, so
Please,
he
if
added
I
I'm
want to
asking that.
label, how will I label? Or
right, so Mr. Bolaji go on.
let,
Mr.
let,
Bolaji go on.
let me
No,
let me delete it and come back again. I think
all
from
right.
there we
Okay.
understand.
I was asking that
All right.
what are you going to use to connect it? Let him just start again so that
So this is the first one from 0
He
slash
added just
0.
one port on the first router. Right, so
On the
the
second
second one he
router,
added
I
two
had two.
ports.
So I connected
He added
to
two, so that
0
so you
slash
can
0
decide to
again.
connect to anyone. It's his choice, right? So you can
0
decide to
slash
connect that
0.
first one to 0/0, 0/1.
Again, I
You
pick
get.
again.
So if you click
But
on it, it's
here,
just
but
one port
here,
that is
there's
left.
one port that is left.
One port left.
I connected
Thank you.
to 0 slash 0.
Yeah.
0/1.
So that's what I did first.
Mhm.
Mr. Black is clear now.
Yeah.
Please, if I want to label, how will I label? Just label the three
Okay,
router.
look at my mouse here. Can you see my mouse?
Yes,
So that's
yes,
it.
I can.
But no need for labeling now. No need for labeling. So we not have that time. Right. So just go on. So is what I share to the group. You can now label. Right. So and
Okay,
when you're sending your tags to me, you have to label them for easy
okay.
identification. So when I'm accessing them, I know where it's right. So you can go back to your selection soon. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So just quickly go ahead and configure um that port. Right, so configure that port, access your router. So you know what we did now? Change the IP address from, we change the subnet mask now, right?
Oh God, I've configured this one already.
No, continue. Enter your password.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
All right, so Mr. Ahmed, so what are you trying to do? So let us know. Okay, you've gotten your
I don't know.
password. So
I
what do
don't.
you want to do? Let us know. Tell us what do you want to do? What
You
are you
said
trying
I
to
should
achieve now?
configure the serial port.
Right, so first thing I want you to do, right, so on your global mode, that IP address, the subnet mask you gave to 10.1, I want you to change it to 10 dot, I mean, 224, 255.255.224. So you go into your global mode now. So let's look at it. Right. So if you do not get it when I was doing it, so you go into your global mode, configure terminal, and then
But I
interface
think
first.
that.
You're going to go into the interface first.
Oh,
You're going to go into the interface F0/0 first. Right.
think the IP address I used even
It's same IP address 10.1.
what I use is different. 192.168.10. Which one? Like this, right? Hello? Hello?
Okay, I didn't even know my mic was muted. So I was saying that assuming is correct, this is it. No, no, it's not correct though. Sorry, 224. That's what you are changing. I've been talking since I don't even know you know. So it's 224. 255, 255, 255.224. Right. So yeah. So this is the IP. This is the subnet max. You get then enter. You get so if you want to add another IP address to that port, after you type the IP address, you type the subnet mask, you give a space and then type secondary. If you want one port to have more than one IP address, but we don't want that. We want this one to override the primary one, right? So 10.1 with the subnet mask override what was there before. You get so this is fine. So now you go into interface S0/0, right? So you connected that port, that cable to S0/0, right? When you were selecting. Right, so
S
you go
S right?
interface S0/0. So let me share the picture of it to the group now. So we'll all see it. So interface S0/0. So 192.1. So I'm not looking at your screen again. I just want to quickly make out something from this. So I will share to the group. Mr. Ahmed, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Are you getting it? I'm not looking at your screen again. I want to share something to the group. So I want us to wrap up this, but I want to see that we got the first correctly. So that we'll now go and do the second and the third later and submit before we meet on Wednesday. It's not, if you don't submit before Wednesday, sir, you're not able to be you will not be able to participate. Right. So going we are configuring, we are not coming back to we're already looking at because I would have looked at what you've done, right? So then we'll continue from it. Right, so if there's any correction, I'll let you know. Right, so but it's very easy. So 10.5/27. Right. So I share this now. 192.168. To 10.7. Oh my god, what is though? Okay. Look this one. Sleep soon.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Ahmed.
I'm stuck. Oh.
Yeah, I know. All right, so we are wrapping it up now. So just you check the group. I'm sharing something. Right, so I've shared something to the group there. Right, so check. Right, so right, so let's just um let's all look at what I shared to the group. So I will explain this. Let me tell you what we're doing. Right, so if you look at what we have there, we know we did /27, right? If you look at the top, so I typed the network address there. I hope that's correct. It's tiny here. So Mr. Okay, it's correct. So 255.255.255.224 is the subnet mask, right? For all the networks. And that's just the network address indication there. Right. So now, no, back to that image now. Back to that image. We are wrapping it up. So you just go and finish it up at finish this thing up, right? So let's finish this up. I have access to to control your screen now. So just leave your mouse. You can leave your mouse. Leave your mouse. Let me just
Okay.
control. Right. Thank you. Right. So I don't know. Can you see my own mouse? Can everyone see me? I'm moving my mouse on your screen. You can, Mr. Ahmed,
Yes.
you can see my mouse, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So this first router, you give it 10.1. The second one, you're going to give it 10 dots. What's this? 10.33, right? So that means Mr. Ahmed is doing a configuration now.
Yes.
So interface, this first one here is he entered this interface, say interface F0/0. Then he now did 192. Just stop sharing. Let me just share. I think it's gonna be faster at my end. So just stop sharing. Let me share because I think it's moving. So let me just share so we'll know the tags and know what we are doing. Right. So this is it here. So this is what I shared. I just did a snip too. Right. Okay. See. I don't know. This I want to zoom it very well. Just a minute. Just a moment, please. So I'm trying to zoom. Oh God. Battery is down. Alright, so if you can see my screen, you let me know. If you can see my screen, you let me know. Alright, so this is it here. This is it here. This first router, we've all configured IP, host name, everything, necessary configuration here. So what is left now is just IP addressing on this one. So we are changing this one to 224, the subnet mask, just like what you did. So it's still in that router on the global mode. You do interface S0/0. This is S0/0. Still on this one router, this Lagos, GT Bank Lagos. Right, so interface S0/0. Enter, you hit enter, then you now configure 192.168.10.33, right, on this port. Then no shutdown. The subnet mask, you give a space before no shutdown. Give a space 255.255.224. Then hit enter. Then you say no shutdown. Then you are done with this one. So all of this, you're adding one more computers to this. So you're adding one computer to all of this. All this. So this will be 10 dots. This will be 192.168.10.2, 10.3, 10.4, 10.5. Right. So now on this one, you are configuring you when you access this one, you do everything you've done here before. You configure host name, but you give it a location. If you don't want to use Abuja, you give the host name to be the location you want to give it, right? So the host name, the password, banner, everything you are doing the same thing, right? So I mean, it might not be the same process, right? So, password, line comes to 0, line VTY, all these things will be tested, right, from different networks. That the other day we only tested from this to this. What if this person wants to have access to this one? He can, right? So that's why we have to configure line VTY, right? So on this middle router, this port you give it 10.34, for confirm the label of the port. This one you give it 10.65. This one will be 10.97, like that. So then this one now, their computer, the computer, the IP address here will be, it will be 10.66. This will be 10.66. I will still edit it. 10.67, 68, 69. Their gateway will be this. This is their gateway. You understand, Mr. Ahmed? And can you hear me? Can anyone? Hope you can hear me. So their gateway will be this. All these computers in this
Yes,
Yes, I
I
can
can
in
hear
hear
this
you.
you.
in this your middle land, right? So their gateway will be this, right? So you know when you configure IP addresses on the computers, there's a provision for gateway. So you make that their gateway to be that one. So it's the same thing here. This router, you access it, configure 192.168, all the necessary configuration, you will do it as well. Banner, password, the same thing. Then IP address and subnet mask. Your subnet mask is 224. You configure the same thing here. This is S0/0. This one might be S0/1 or S0/0. Right. This one might be F0/0 or F0. So that's why you have to confirm it. Confirm the label. Then when you are done, you now configure this one. The gateway is 10.129, right? So that means this will be 10.130. That's the valid IP address. 10.131, 10.132, 10.133. Then their gateway will be 10.129, right? So any questions? So oh, so this will be submitted before, let's say on or before our set by 8 p.m. Right? So it's nothing difficult. So is there any question? Right? So right, do you all understand? Mr. Ahmed,
Yes, boss.
Mr.
Yes,
Makari,
yes, I
did you
understand.
get
I
did you
understand.
understand? Right, so it's the same
Yes.
configuration. If you check the group, you will see the commands. Right, so everything we have them there. Right, so Mr. Agbenga, are you saying something?
I said yes, I understand what you meant, sir. I understand.
So all understood. So that's what I want us to do. So
So,
then when we are done with the configuration,
so
so when we meet on Wednesday, right? So we are only configuring routing and one task, and that will not even take us much time. But it's the explanation and understanding it that might take us some time, but the configuration will not take us time. Then that will not be the final task to configure to submit before Saturday. Right, so we have Thursday and Friday to work on that one. So we are done with everything computer networking or IP addresses. So when we meet on Saturday, we begin to set up our virtual labs and then begin to we'll be setting up a Kali, one Linux environment, the Windows server, get to implement this in our virtual lab, then with the physical network we will have there. Right. So I think that's pretty all for now. I apologize for staying this long. I know also, thank you for staying up to this moment, right? So it's just for us to cover enough, right? So because don't do this now, right? So we'll
So
come
please,
back to IP addressing on
I
Saturday.
have a question.
All right, Mr. Ahmed.
Hello?
I'm with you, Mr. Ahmed.
Please, what you just made mention of now. Sorry, please, are we configuring it from the each laptop that is connected via
To the
console
router,
cable to the router? Or
yes, via
okay, I thought
the
maybe we
console
are
cable.
using because you know that I'm on the terminal before you said I should stop sharing my screen. I thought maybe we are going to configure the router from that environment.
We are configuring each router from the laptop that is
Console
connected to the router now.
From
that is
the
directly
from the
connected,
laptop.
please.
Okay,
Yes, each laptop, the one laptop is connected to the
okay,
router.
okay,
So you have to configure that router to that laptop.
okay, okay. All right, thank you.
All right. So I think
Hello,
that's
Mr.
that's
Steve.
all
I
for
have a
now.
question, please.
All
I
right,
have a
Mr.
question,
Desmond.
Mr. Steve. At the point, my connection was bad, so I couldn't really hear you. Are you going to share the process on the group, like the step by
Yes,
step
I'm
and
going to
all
share
those
it.
things?
Yeah, I'm
All
going to share
right.
it. Right. With the image even has interpretation, right? So I will add more to the image, then give response to that image just for you what to do. And I will re-edit the configuration guide, that one that I was editing
And
on Saturday. So I will edit it, I will add to it. You get.
all right. Yeah.
So
All right.
I
Thank you.
think that's all for now. I don't want us to shoot beyond this time. Right. So Mr. Bolaji, um Mr. Adeleke, Mr. Bega, Mr. Desmond, and Mr. Mr. McCarry. Thank you for your time. So, it is done before Wednesday. So let's see who will get it. Like, not first, get it correctly, right? So before Wednesday, and you share, use passwords that you know that you don't use on your maybe your account, because you're going to share this password. What I found is you can use like the passwords I'm showing you. You know, you're all seeing my password. You know, is Bank 54321. So use similar password. You might not use same with mine, but not sure that because I'm going to forward this out for review, and then when we meet again, is to continue from where we stopped. So those that didn't get it, they will have to go and work on it again, but they will follow us by Wednesday, right? So if you submit late, I might not be able to review, right? So thank you all for your time and do have a wonderful night, rest, and see you on Wednesday again by God's grace. Cheers.
All right, thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.